Hi, this is John Cullen. Welcome to another episode of Hypothetically Speaking. In this episode of Hypothetically Speaking, I'm really pleased to be joined by Dr. Dave Collum. Dr. Dave Collum is at Cornell University, and he and I connected over Twitter. Dr. Collum, thank you so much for joining me today here on Hypothetically Speaking. Really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I don't normally get to talk to people who are up to speed on some of the issues that we're likely to hit.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, you and I connected on Twitter, I guess, because I did a podcast. I was a guest on a podcast a couple weeks ago, and I guess you saw that and got wind of my work. Is that how we connected? Is that right?
Yeah, I was in the middle of a podcast on the same podcast with Mike Ferris, and I went into what I often do is a slight rant about things like Las Vegas shootings being from head to toe wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and I do it just to sort of shock the audience into waking up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then he mentioned your name, and so I went and ferreted you out and looked around and said, "Oh, interesting."
I gotcha. Well, let me tell the audience a little bit about you, so they understand your background. You got your bachelor's degree at Cornell University, but then you went to Columbia, and you got two different masters at Columbia, and then went and got a PhD, and then decided to go, or I don't know if you decided or they decided for you to go back to Cornell, and you are the Betty Miller Professor of Chemistry and Chemical Biology at Cornell University. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, especially since it was just drug, sex, rock and roll in high school. So there was some rehab required to get through that story. Yeah.
Tell us about Betty Miller. What is the Betty Miller Professor, and explain that to the audience, if you will.
Well, so universities have endowed chairs. Betty Miller is the wife of one of my former colleagues who was on the Manhattan Project and made a bunch of Teflon-like products and stuff and made some serious money. And so they endow a chair. So for going rate probably about $5 million in the endowment now, you can name a chair, and that pays my salary.
Gotcha.
And so it's a way of slowly but surely accruing the fully endowment of the payroll of there's probably 500 endowed chairs at Cornell. So.
And is most of your work at the university research, or is most of your work teaching? What is most of the stuff that you're doing there?
Well, you kind of teach for your dinner, and your job is actually research, and so you're hired to be famous, right? Bottom line, you're hired to score, to make Cornell an illustrious place, and being a good teacher is important, but that's not what gets you the job.
Getting published.
And it is getting published, and ideally really getting famous, right? And being sort of top of your field, whatever that is. And so you scour the globe to find young punks coming out of PhDs or postdocs.
Right.
And you literally try to find the best person in the world, if you can, in that field that year at least. And then you hire them, and then they go through assistant professorship. And if they get tenure, then they get to stay. And most of my colleagues, at least, work very hard, their entire career. So it's not the image of the faculty member sitting around, choking the chicken is not valid, and the sciences is not. They work very, very hard.
Right.
The humanists might be loafing half the time. I don't know. I really don't know at all, actually.
Yeah. But I mean, your field is so specialized. I mean, you're not just doing organic chemistry, you're doing organometallic chemistry, you're doing organolithium, organosodium. I mean, you're on an edge of organic chemistry that not many people can skate on. Is that true?
Well, it's true, but it's also true that you're supposed to be on an edge somewhere anyway. So, so the perfect edge. So my digital footprint has as a foundation mostly finance and markets. So somehow I got into finance and markets and showed some sort of odd aptitude for it. Don't quite know what it was, but so, I go to investment conferences and give talks and stuff. And I do about 50 podcasts a year, probably. I'm a big believer that regression of the mean is a force of nature. I got to argue with someone say, the markets can just keep going up. I said, no, they can't. 20% of the S&P can't pay their interest payments with their cash flow. These are the 500 biggest companies in the United States. The overarching theory that covers all these concerns of ours is that someone's trying to destroy us.
Do you believe that?
Well, let me ask you this. Are we trying to destroy Putin? I think the S&P is going to unwind sub 2000.
There's people right now who are going to hear you say that, and they're going to go shut their computer and go for a walk outside.
Well, what do you disagree with? I went back into Commodities and Resources in December of 2020. And I was first triggered by Exxon getting kicked out of the Dow. And I said, oh boy, that's a buy signal right there. And then the second important thing was when Jesse Felder pointed out that the S&P was 2% energy and it used to be 16. I said, oh, that's another buy signal. Okay. And they're almost always tied to finance in some way. As an organolithium chemist, it turns out that lithium is the most important metal in organic chemistry. So it sounds like an edge, right? And it is an edge. It's very complicated. It was extraordinarily complicated. There are people who thought I'd fail going in that direction. Mm-hmm. Maybe because they didn't think people would care. Turns out I have huge pharma connections now because they care. Mm-hmm. They use lithium on gigaton scales, and so and we kind of have the market cornered in that there's very few of us out there who do this, and I would say the way I do it, there's almost none.
But the Grignard reagent has a nucleophilic carbon, and so that's why it does what it does in chemical reactions. Now, it's important to understand that in order to make the Grignard reagent, you need to use an ether solvent. And commonly, the ether could be diethyl ether, or it could be THF, tetrahydrofuran.
And there might be someone listening who's in my field going, well, I do it, but it's not the way we do it, right? And so the pharma connection turned out to be a real winner, and so that we made a lot of money for Pfizer and Merck and these guys for in various ways, and so it's on the edge, but the edge is where we're supposed to be working. So
it's fascinating, and yet the audience is probably thinking that we're going to start talking about various viruses and Nerimididase, and but we're not. You were interested in the Vegas shooting, and so this is how we connected. And between the coffee and a mic, and I guess I did another podcast a week or two ago on Red Pill News with Zach Payne, and I did another one a few weeks earlier with Dustin Stockton, and basically just kind of talked through the event. And just that seemed to open up a lot of eyes for the audience, people who weren't aware of various aspects. So I'd love to hear your take on it, and sort of, what triggered your cognitive dissonance, and how early on with this Vegas shooting, what was it about it that you said, no, this isn't right? And how soon was that? How early?
Well, so you said something in one of your podcasts. You said something about, maybe it was one with Mike. You said something about how you had gone down a previous rabbit hole. This was not something about not being your first. And that was really my story. So you go down rabbit holes sort of one at a time until you realize the world is just rabbit holes. And so my first rabbit hole was when I was 18 years old, when I went to a seminar by Mark Lane, who was Oswald's lawyer. And I certainly wasn't ready to handle what Mark Lane had to say. But he basically, what I remember vividly is that he was an elite lawyer. He was sort of a Johnny Cochran type of his era. And he said Oswald had nothing to do with the killing of Kennedy. And he said that he was hired by the Kennedys to defend Oswald. And that was rather extraordinary to me. And so that kind of put just a little bug up there. I tend to be very contrarian. So I tend to look for the story beneath the story, a Michael Lewis kind of approach, maybe.
Right.
And I don't want to write about stuff that everyone's writing about. And so when it gets to be a crowded field, I said, okay, you guys keep writing. I'm moving on. I write, starting around 2007, I started writing a summary of the year on a finance website. And it started out as here's how my year went. And then I made a few observations about where I thought the world was maybe heading. And then one year it kind of went viral, escaped the containment field. And all of a sudden, instead of being 250 clicks from 250 people, all of whom I knew, I got 3,000. And so somehow it got outside. And then the next year it got bigger. And then in 2009, I wrote a big one. I said, okay, I'm going to take this serious. I've been investing for 30 years. I wrote a pretty big one, and it kind of went bananas. And I found myself in demand. So ever since then, I've written an annual review, and it's a story of finance. It's a story of human folly. So for me, I write about whatever happened that year that catches my eye. So anything like Vegas would have caught it no matter what.
Right.
But what was the eye catcher for Vegas? And you and I think, looking at it sort of in some sense, if I'm correct, possibly at different layers of the same onion. I get a sense that, like, you focused a lot on the helicopters. Was it Mohammed bin Salman? Is he that have trouble keeping these guys straight? Mm-hmm. Which I picked up relatively late, so that was not on my radar. So what happened is I was watching the Vegas shooting videos with morbid curiosity, sort of like the we're all glued to 9/11 at the time, right? Mm-hmm. Which I'm a truther too at this point, right? And I'm watching this video, and up pops a guy named Mike Kronk. And I wouldn't have remembered it. And he tells a story, and it's right there. It's still dark. There's still a crowd. The newscasters have shown up, and they're trying to get the story. And Mike seems notably unpassionate, right? I would expect the guy's eyes to be popping out like a cartoon character, mm-hmm. and shook up, and he seemed remarkably calm, mm-hmm. and he talked about his friend getting shot 3 times in the chest, mm-hmm. which I later found out from a guy named I can't remember his name now, a marksman who said that's not possible because the spray would be far too great. So you wouldn't have gotten 3 from that distance, right? But what caught my eye immediately was Mike Kronk said his friend put his fingers in his own bullet holes to stop the bleeding. Mm-hmm. I said, now you're lying. Why are you lying? Right? So I was familiar with lying Wall Street's filled with liars, right?
Mhm.
So right away I said, holy shit, why is this guy saying this?
Matt, I believe you're there with Mike Kronk, who you were speaking with earlier.
That's right, Mike Kronk. We found him sitting actually right here on the curb, and he wasn't wearing a shirt because he had used it to stanch the blood of one of his friends, and he was sitting there with his head in his hands, and there's still blood on his hands, and he had been through one of the most harrowing experiences I've ever heard, and we just started talking to him. And Mike, maybe you can just tell me your story. I mean, where were you tonight?
We were at the Route 91 concert, and been there all day waiting for Jason Aldean, and it's real surreal, actually. You know, everybody's having a good time, and then all of a sudden you hear some popping going on, and I don't think anybody really understood what it was. And then my buddy, after a little bit of popping, my buddy's like, I got hit. So my buddy got shot 3 times, and then everybody knew there was a shooter. So everybody pretty much dove on top of each other, got down. It was a lot of chaos, people trampling each other and, you know, trying to get away. And it seemed like forever, you know, but we were just trying to take care of the people that are wounded. You know, there were a lot of people that were really selfless and actually stayed with people.
Just gonna hold it closer to you, Mike. Now you're an avid hunter, and so you recognized immediately that this was not just gunfire, but it was automatic gunfire,
Yes.
coming in rapid bursts.
Yeah, it was very obvious. Whoever was shooting it was a fully automatic, and they had to reload. So whether there's one person or two, but there was a break between clips being, you know, shot out.
Now you describe it rather casually, but you know, your best friend, you're here on your 48th birthday trip, you're a retired teacher, and you came with your best friend, and he took 3 bullets to the chest, as close as I am to you right now.
True. It was hard. You know, I saw him there, and I was like, I wasn't going to leave him, so we had to, you know, there was an EMT there. Somebody was an EMT. There was lots of, you know, awesome ex-military people that were trained, so we got him compressed, and that's, you know, kept compression on his chest. He actually put his finger in the hole, you know, so we, you know, don't move your finger, and we could keep the compression on, and probably stayed like that for at least 10 minutes, 15 minutes before we finally made a decision that we needed to get him over the fence so we get him under the stage, so at least we knew we were safe dealing with him. And
so you and 3 other guys had to physically haul him over a fence in order to get him under the stage and to a protected area.
Yeah, we got him over and then slid him under the stage, and we were under there, and another awesome lady came over and helped compress, and so there's, you know, I am no hero, but there is tons of heroes out there there's a lot of heroes out there.
It's pretty astonishing to think that you guys were physically plugging his bullet wounds with your fingers.
Yeah, Rob, with my friend Rob, he had his finger in the hole. He's like, don't take it out. He's like, leave your finger there, we'll compress over the top of it. So we just had, you know, shirts and whatever we could, you know.
And then you couldn't get him out. There was no ambulance there because there was still an active shooting situation.
Correct.
And how did you manage to get him out?
Well, there was a couple, I want to say they're EMT, first responders, and we got him out from under the stage and ran him around the back, and we got him on a cart, and we drove around the side where there was a triage center, and one of the cops, we were going to throw him in his car, but then something happened where he had to go, and we ended up loading up a pickup truck, a civilian pickup truck with 4 wounded people to get him, but we got turned around.
4 wounded people in that pickup truck,
back of the truck,
as well as you guys.
Yes. Yeah, there was 1 person with each person, so 8 of us in the back of a pickup, and we got turned around, so we couldn't go, and then we ended up right back here on this street, right where those cop cars are, and got him in an ambulance, and that's where one young man passed away, you know, as we were carrying him out of the...
One of the guys you were with actually died.
It was somebody I did not know, but...
Somebody in the truck with you?
Yes, we had him in the ambulance, and we were loading him in the ambulance, and the guy said, you know, let's set him down here, and so I set him down with myself, and the young man passed away.
He literally died in your arms?
He did. Been a tough night.
For so many people here.
So many people died and are wounded. And it's very sad.
Sorry I had to experience that. I must just have been.
Me too. But I'm glad some people are safe, and you know. it's a terrible tragedy. I mean, I don't know what other words you can use for it.
We got a piece of good news a few minutes ago, though. Your friend Rob, the one who was shot 3 times, including bullets to the chest, his daughter texted you.
Yep.
What'd she say?
He said, "Hey, Dad talked to us, said he's going to be okay." So it took a load off me, but still, you know, so many other people. I mean, it could have been me. I was right next to my buddy. That could have been me that got shot. So, you know, very thankful right now.
Did you actually hear the bullets hit? Did you hear?
You know, you actually heard some of the bullets hit the fencing. Yeah, it's aluminum, and that's how that's pretty much how we kind of knew this was not firecrackers. And then my buddy got shot, obviously, but we did hear some hit the aluminum fencing.
I mean, you're incredibly strong. You're standing through this. You're an avid hunter. You've been in situations that are chaotic and maybe not similar to this, but difficult. But you know, it's just impressive how you've withstood all of this.
I try to keep your head, you know, and do what you can. I mean, like I said, there's tons of people that were true heroes tonight.
And George, we've talked a lot about luck as well tonight, and Mike's girlfriend actually fell ill earlier today, and so she decided to stay in the hotel. Or she could have been along with you guys too.
Yeah, she was. She actually came to the concert and left like about an hour in. It was too hot, you know. So I'm very thankful that she got sick, to be honest. Thankful that she got sick, to be honest. Thankful that she got sick, to be honest. Thankful that she got sick, to be honest.
And so as YouTube does, he finishes the interview and he talks about putting him on a cart and wheeling him off to the hospital and et cetera, et cetera. YouTube rolled over 15 seconds later to the next video, new network, same guy. So there's 20,000 people at this concert, but they interview Mike Kronk again. Mm-hmm. And he tells the story again, and it changes a little bit. Mm-hmm. And it would be trivial, but I'm going, but your story changed. And it was, he put him on the back of a truck. And I said, why'd you lie again, Mike? Right. And so then 15-second rollover, and there's Mike Kronk again. Now he's looking a little more emotional, right? He's getting that part down. And so I searched out Mike Kronk quite a bit because I said, okay, this is what, I'm not even sure I knew they were called that at the time, the crisis actors. Mm-hmm. And I can even tell a benign story about why crisis actors exist. You could say, well, they ship some guy there to calm everyone the hell down and mm-hmm. to give news something to work with. It's not just pandemonium. I don't know. But so I was reading about, I started seeing videos of course, I saw all the shooting videos, right? Mm-hmm. And none of them made sense because there were guns going off everywhere. And there's taxi cab drivers saying there's shooters over here. You got cops saying there's shooters over there. Mm-hmm. And so nothing was adding up. You could hear multiple weapons with the naked ear. And then, audio guys pulled all the shooters apart and said, look here, there are at least 3 shooters in this audio right here. Mm-hmm. Some guy claimed to triangulate in and show where the shooters were coming from. But I picked up another video of Mike Kronk a couple days later. And I've been reading about the wounded. And I watch videos. There'd be some teenage girl there and she's in the hospital and she's sitting on a chair in a gown and she'd been shot in the leg and she's talking about the thing. But then I'm picking up trauma surgeons saying these weapons do a special kind of damage to the human body. And so I was getting this conflicting view of people talking about getting shot and then mm-hmm. And then surgeons saying, it takes 10 surgeries to repair one of these when you get whacked by them, right? That sort of mm-hmm. thing. Mm-hmm. So the trauma surgeons were picking up on a problem. Mm-hmm. And then Mike Kronk and a film crew goes in to visit his friend. And I'm familiar with hospitals because my wife has had 60 surgeries, so I kind of know the protocols. Mm-hmm. And Mike goes in to talk to his friend, and there's his friend with a nose cannula, mm-hmm. and they're chatting. And I'm going, what do you got your fingers in the bullet holes so that you don't have air whizzing out of your chest? I mean, what's going on here? And then I noticed, so he had no tubes out any orifice, right? And you and I'm sure, would agree that if a guy had been shot 3 times with an AR-15 in the chest, first of all, no film crew would get near him. Second of all, he'd be in the ICU. Third of all, the only way you'd know he's alive is you'd hear beeping that tells you there are vital signs that have not yet been lost, right? And here he is chatting with his buddy, and then the YouTube started disappearing like crazy. That's the other hint. And then I noticed that the screen, which has all the pulse ox and everything on it, wasn't plugged in. So I started digging into Mike Kronk, and he was basically a hick from Alaska. And all I could find was a picture of Mike with an elk, holding the antlers and looking like a tough guy. And he was just a bearded Alaskan hick. The reason I mention that is because it turns out one of the other key players, as you know, is Sheriff Lombardo, who said it absolutely had to be multiple shooters. And by the next day said it was a single shooter. That turns out to be a property of all the mass shootings, the mass killings where the guy on the street, right on the spot, tells the story of multiple shooters. By the next day, it's one drug-addled teenager.
Yes, no.
You guys ready to go? Thumbs up? Everybody good?
Here, Greg. All right, can you hear me okay? Well, good evening. Obviously, I'm Sheriff Joe Lombardo from Clark County, and I'm here to talk to you about the tragic event that's taken place and is currently taking place at the Mandalay Bay out on the Las Vegas Boulevard South. We experienced an active shooter situation approximately 10:08 p.m. tonight. This evening, we had calls come into dispatch of multiple shots being fired from the direction of the Mandalay Bay towards the Route 91 concert that was taking place on the east side of Las Vegas Boulevard. Through investigation and response, we determined there was a shooter on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay. Officers responded to that location and engaged the suspect at that location. He is dead currently. He has been identified. He is a local resident. I will not release his name at this time, but we are interested in a companion that is traveling with him, and her name is, and I will provide you the name, so please be accurate on this, is Mary Lou Danley, Marilou, last name spelled Danley. She is a Asian female, approximately 4 foot 11, weight of 111 pounds. We have not located her at this time, and we are interested in talking to her for follow-up. 2 vehicles we're interested in locating, and we need your assistance with that. We have a Hyundai Tucson with Nevada plate 114 Baker 40B40, and a Chrysler Pacifica Touring Nevada plate 19D401. These are the plates registered to the suspect that we located at the Mandalay Bay. So there's a couple of things that need to occur at this time. Additionally, anybody that may have cell phone video or any type of video associated with this event that would be a benefit to the investigation, please respond to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department headquarters at 400 South Martin Luther King, and we will take custody of that video. So if you have it, you evaluate it, and you think it would be a benefit, please bring that down to the headquarters. Standing with me is Special Agent in charge of the FBI, Aaron Rouse. He is assisting with the investigation, which is ongoing. And then we have Fire Chief Greg Castle from Clark County Fire, and they are assisting with all the victims. Now, as far as number of victims, I cannot give you an accurate number at this point. We have well in the excess of 100 plus injured and excess of 20 plus that have died at this point. So we will get those numbers to you accurately as soon as we can. But please bear with us. This is an ongoing investigation. But we are comfortable that the primary aggressor in this event has expired or passed away and is no longer a threat. There's been multiple phone calls and accusations or conjecture coming through social media that there's multiple shooters at other resorts. That has been proven to be false. Additionally, there's been accusations or beliefs there's some explosives going off. That is also false. The only explosive contained in this event was from our SWAT team breaching the room. So please, we are pretty confident that there is no longer a threat other than we are attempting to locate the person of interest.
Was this an act of terrorism?
No, not at this point. We believe it's a local individual. He resides here locally. I'm not at liberty to give you his place of residence yet because it's an ongoing investigation. We don't know what his belief system was at this time. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. No, we have no idea at this point. It's an ongoing investigation. As you can imagine, it just happened. So please bear with us.
And it always reduces down to that. And I was at somewhat of a disbeliever of the MK Ultra story. And then actually, I knew there was something to it, but I read a lot about it this year, and it turns out to be enormous, right? It turns out to be enormous and fully documented. And MK Ultra was the CIA trying to figure out how to drug people into doing shit that they normally wouldn't do. And the claim is they wrapped it up after the Church Commission, and it didn't work. And I'm sitting there going, I don't think they wrapped it up, and I don't think it failed. And so MK Ultra has been tied to shooters. Stephen Kinzer wrote a book on this, and he's pretty credible, I think. They've been tied to Manson. They've been tied to Jack Ruby killing Oswald. They've been tied to the Oklahoma City bomber. They've been tied to Ted Kaczynski. And I actually think Kaczynski wasn't a failure of the program. I think he was an experiment. I think these are all laboratory experiments. And so that's kind of how I got into the Vegas shooting. And then, as you know, I know I'm telling the high priest, but as you know, even famous people picked up. David French, Tucker Carlson, Ann Coulter were all calling baloney on it and saying there's something so wrong with this story. And how a guy got 23 sophisticated killing machines that were not the kind you could buy from Walmart into his hotel room. Suppose we were there for 3 or 4 days, and Steve Wynn said there's no chance you'd let a guy could have weapons in his room for 3 or 4 days because they would never leave a hotel room unattended. You can put do not disturb all you want. They're going to peek in that room because, rotting carcasses are not good for business. And so they will not let a room sit attended and unchecked on for 4 days. And from all the footage, it was clear that there were shooters everywhere. And then it had all the pieces that were strangely unexplainable, like after the shooting, out of 20,000 people, 9 more people died mysteriously. During the shooting, there was that crazy woman walking around the crowd saying, "You're all going to die in 45 minutes." And so here's where you and I we don't quite connect yet. And that is, so you've got this Saudi assassination plot, which I think is a good one. And I think I had missed the helicopter story until after. So it occurred, October? So I wrote about it in my annual review. So I had from sometime in October till December to get the story together as one of 25 chapters. So you can imagine how furiously I was trying to piece it together. But the mess I'm describing is somewhat it doesn't match up well with the Saudi assassination because the ground level mess seems too complicated for a Saudi assassination from the helicopters. I don't know how to piece the two together.
Well, why don't we start at the beginning, and I'll kind of walk you through the process that I went through and what I discovered in sequence, because what I understand about it now is the result of 18 months, 24 months of disclosures by the LVMPD. In other words, not all the evidence was made available on day one.
Oh, I know. They hid all like crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of the body cam footage didn't come out till much, much later. And in the early
So
days,
is the body cam footage in the Route 91 documentary, is that capture most of the body cam footage, or is that even inadequate?
No, that doesn't even come close. So the Route 91 documentary that Mindy put together is sort of like a synopsis, and in a weird way, it's almost like a 2 hour and 15-minute preview of the content on my channel. And she used a lot of a lot of my work there. Like there's a video.
Did I see your face in her documentary? I think I did.
Yeah, I
a brief cameo.
Yeah, for about a second, I'm interviewing somebody. Yeah. I'm interviewing a guy who was attending a hockey game, the Sharks game, and when he and his wife came out of the game, they went to the M&M candy store on Las Vegas Boulevard. And when they were coming in or coming out of the candy store, he says there's a Black Hawk helicopter flying down Las Vegas Boulevard. And he said, and the way I knew it was a Black Hawk is because they have these Lexan transparent panels right below the pilot's feet, so the pilot can see the ground. And he said,
"Oh, interesting."
And he said, so it was like I could see the glow of the cockpit through the floor. Yeah. And he said, so I knew it was a Black Hawk. It flew right over us on Las Vegas Boulevard.
8:51 we walked out of the M&M store. Mm-hmm. We're standing I guess in front of the ABC store across the street from the T-Mobile Arena, which was to our left. Mm-hmm. And our rental car was parked in the parking garage behind the T-Mobile Arena. I want to say it's to the left of the Monte Carlo. So we're standing at the crosswalk, and we're waiting, and it seemed like the crosswalk was taking forever to change. Mm-hmm. Coming from my right is a black helicopter, a Huey helicopter. What made it distinguishable was the fact that the helicopter had two window plates underneath the nose of the helicopter, mm-hmm. where you can see part of the framing of the helicopter. It had a back door on the right side that was fully open with a black curtain drawn. And the curtain was open enough to where I could see the light green luminescence of the instrument panel of the helicopter. I could not see any bodies in it. I couldn't see anything other than that color, and then the passenger seat of the helicopter. But it flew low enough that I could see that there was a black curtain, the door was open, and the color of the instrument panel. It flew right over our heads. As soon as it got in front of Mandalay Bay, it kind of rose up in altitude, and that's when we heard the gunshots. I turned to my left immediately, looked up at the helicopter, and it was just like, what the hell? That was automatic gunfire. I'm thinking to myself, my girlfriend responds to me. She goes, babe, did you hear that helicopter? And I go, what about that helicopter? She says, it sounded funny. And I go, what do you mean it sounded funny? She goes, it just sounded weird. And I go, that wasn't the helicopter. That was automatic gunfire. And then as we're talking about it, I turn my head to my left again, and I look at the helicopter, and I see it circle around Mandalay Bay towards the back end of it, and there's no gunshots. As soon as it comes back to the front of Mandalay Bay, you hear the brrr again, and then it flies off again behind it.
Where were you guys standing as you're seeing this? So you said you saw it kind of fly over your head. Is that right? It like came from behind you and then was heading southbound. Is that right? Did I get that right?
It came from our right, from our right side down the strip.
He said, I've never seen anything like that. And it's nighttime, and I'm looking through the floor, and I see the instrumentation through the floor of the helicopter. Like, he said, that's how low it was. So that's one eyewitness. Well, it turns out that over the course of the investigation, I ended up meeting a number of eyewitnesses who came forward. The first one who came forward is a guy we call the dog walking guy. And the interesting thing about him was he was watching this unfold from just far enough away to not be able to hear the gunfire.
Interesting.
So just far enough away to see what's happening. And he walks his dogs every night at the same place at the same time. 10 o'clock.
It's a timestamp.
And this guy baselined air traffic in the area unknowingly, like wax on, wax off Mr. Miyagi, by walking his dogs the same time every night for years.
So he would know when something was wrong.
And when you see the interview with him, he is shaken, and he's like, dude, this jet plane just banks and turns like...
Drove my dogs over to this area, and I got out of the car about 10:04. And as I was getting out of the car, I looked, down this way to the east, and I saw a plane make this bank to the south. I mean, I've never seen a turn like this before. It banked really sharply to the south, like a car would swerve to avoid a person or something. That dramatic a turn. And I thought, God, that was strange. I thought maybe it was a plane crash or something. And then almost simultaneously, all the emergency vehicle sirens started coming up, from everywhere. You don't really realize how many they are until they all turn on the lights and start heading a certain direction. And that's what happened. I mean, everyone you can imagine just started heading east. And I was thinking, oh my God, there's a plane crash, right? What's going on? And then I looked over to, the dogs got out and they ran out, and I was watching them, and, Mandalay Bay was in sight. And I saw these helicopters on the top of Mandalay Bay. Actually, I gave them a look when I saw it when I first got out of the car and I saw the plane. I looked over there and I didn't see the helicopters. And the next time I looked over, they were there. It's like
it's avoiding an incoming something. He said, I've never seen anything like it. And then he describes the Maverick Tour Helicopters Brigade. They sent up a sortie that on flight radar, the ADS-B tracking software, all of them are effectively using the same stuff. It's ADS-B transponders.
Were those the 8 helicopters? About
7.
8 helicopters?
There's 7. So Mindy didn't pay attention. Okay. So there's 7 of them that go up. And one of the ones that you see coming back down is the LVMPD, which is N911WY. That is part of the group that seems to be coming back. She may have counted that. But what's interesting is Dog Walking Guy says, you guys see 7 of them on flight radar. He said, but half of them had their transponders turned off. I counted them. There were 14 helicopters that returned to Maverick. He said, so if you saw 7 of them, it's like a breadcrumb trail. It's like a tracer. That doesn't mean 7 of them took off. He said 14 helicopters returned to Maverick. And he said, I'm standing there like, what is going on?
And then about 10:25, I saw this convoy of helicopters start off, like they went, followed over the 95, and I could see when they got, like over the 15, they went over the 95 and spaced about half a mile apart, which is a lot tighter than these things usually fly. And they went up over the 95, and then they went south over Rainbow, took a left turn at Rainbow, and, flew down Rainbow. And the first 2 were Maverick 2 helicopters, and they flew over the 215 and took a left, between the 215 and Warm Springs, and went back to McCarran. The third was one of these attack helicopters, one of the killers, and it was about 2/3 the size of the Maverick 2 helicopters, if that tells you anything. And they went to the right. They took a right and went to the southwest, like they would have gone over the Walmart parking lot there at 215 and Rainbow.
And there's police cars flying around, but he can't hear the gunfire. He's just far enough away. He can't, but he sees the helicopter.
So he thinks there's something going militarily.
He can't imagine. The first thought is, are they filming a movie? But if they're filming a movie, how the hell are there police cars coming up from Henderson? They're coming from everywhere. He's like, it was insane what was happening. And then he sees balls of fire coming out of the sides of the helicopters, which are next to Mandalay Bay, but can't hear it. He just, but I see a ball of fire coming off the side of the helicopter. So that was his testimony.
In the same hotel as the shooter, where were you exactly when it happened?
Yeah, so I was in my room. I was about 2 floors and 1 room below him when everything started. So I was laying actually in my bed, and I first thought I heard fireworks, and I got up to look out at the concert because it sounded like it was coming from inside the room. So at that point, I wasn't sure what was going on, and when I heard the first 3 shots, I wasn't sure. After that, when it switched over to the automatic rifle, or whatever he had, I realized it was a gunner. At one point, I got up and I went over into the tub, just thinking maybe it was safer inside the tub there. So I stayed in there for a little bit, and then I got back up and I walked out towards the window to try to see if I could see anything going on. And I just saw cop cars everywhere, probably about 100, 200 of them swarming around Mandalay Bay and around the concert. And then helicopters started coming around the hotel. And they shone their lights right on, like right where I was standing, right on me, and they blinded me with their beams. 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 Walked away from the window because I wasn't sure, if I don't want them to mistake me as a shooter or anything. So I backed away from the window at that point. I went back on my bed at that point, and there's still more gunshots. And there's still more gunshots. And there's still more gunshots. And then helicopters started coming around the hotel, and they shone their lights right on, like right where I was standing, right on me. And there's still more gunshots. And then helicopters started coming around the hotel, and they shone their lights right on, like right where I was standing, right on me, and they blinded me with their beams. So I walked away from the window because I wasn't sure. I went back on my bed at that point, and there's still more gunshots.
I was so unbelievably certain that it was coming from the helicopter because it was so close. And I remember thinking, why is it that close? Oh my God, I think the shooting is coming from the helicopter. Just in that moment was so certain, just not a doubt in my mind that there was shooting coming from the helicopter. But I do remember seeing they have those openings on the side, and I could see a shadow not facing facing out towards us. So not sitting back how you would in a helicopter strapped in. He was they were looking down at us. And it was I could see their heads, then underneath I could see a big blob, and I'm I couldn't tell what that was. And so I think that's another reason why I was really sure about it, because they were looking down on us. And I really wish I could remember every single detail with that night, but for some reason, I just knew it was coming out of that helicopter.
I put together testimony from about 13, 14, 15 different people who all believe that the shooting was coming from helicopters. And then recently, last October 1st, visited the venue and bumped into somebody and said to her, there's a lot of people who say that they thought that the shooters were in helicopters. And she said, that's exactly what I told my husband, that they were shooting at us from those helicopters.
Were you ladies here 5 years ago?
Yep.
You were?
Yep.
You know about the shooting and all that?
Here, John, stand a little closer.
You were there?
You were at the concert?
We were at the concert.
Thank goodness you're all right.
Yep.
And what do you think about the police and their findings? Do you think Stephen Paddock did all that shooting from that hotel room?
I really don't.
Did you know that a year after the police released body camera footage, and on multiple police body cameras, you can see that the window to the room isn't even broken?
Really?
At 10:30 at night?
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
We spoke to a bunch of eyewitnesses who said that they believe that they were being fired at by helicopters.
That's what I thought.
You thought helicopters?
Thought that? Yeah.
What made you think?
Hang on.
No, she can't have it. She can't
Okay,
handle it.
okay.
She's very
Too emotional.
Yeah.
So-
I thought it was too.
all right.
That's what I called my husband. I told him.
Helicopters.
So there's a bunch of eyewitnesses that say they're shooting at us from the helicopters.
So not Maverick.
And a number of people in the documentary, which for me was like an answer key because it was a couple of years later. So I said, "Oh, this is great. Now I get to see what I got right and wrong."
Mm-hmm.
A number of people mentioned the attack from the air. They said they were getting rained down on.
Right. So to me, the minute you have an aerial attack, every discussion about Mary Lou Danley, Jesus Campos, it's irrelevant.
But it exists though, and so the question is, you still, I'm still having trouble connecting the helicopters and the ground level crazy.
Okay, so let me help you with that. So there's a huge piece of the puzzle that changes everything, and that is that there's no video evidence of gunfire coming from 32-135, but there is video evidence of gunfire coming from the little room next door, 32-134, that little adjoining room.
That's the little one that's a little more interior.
Right. So they had to blow the door to get in there and all that. Well, that room, we see the window get broken. We actually see the glass falling. So we've got two rooms and two windows that they show you broken the next day. That's the illusion. The illusion that the LVMPD and FBI present are those two broken windows the next morning. The challenge here is we have gunfire coming from the small room, 32-134, on camera, and the LVMPD tells us there's only 8 shots taken from that room. They tell us that in the FIT report. Only 8 shots were taken from that room. They were .308. They were taken from a bolt-action rifle, and they were taken at the tanks. 2 of them hit the tanks. 6 of them missed the tanks.
Right.
This is what the LVMPD tells us. Well, if that's the case, well, then that means no one was killed from that room. If 8 shots were taken, 6 missed the tanks, 2 hit the tanks.
How do you miss a tank?
Well, this is where we're getting into what we call forged evidence, which is where the narrative and the actual physical evidence itself has been manipulated by the LVMPD. And this is why I want to press charges against McMahill, Lombardo, and the rest of the leadership there. But the Attorney General, Aaron Ford, doesn't seem to want to get involved. He doesn't like to get dirty. So
let me insert something I was heading towards, just because it's laughable. Last year, I returned to the story briefly because Lombardo became a congressman, governor, governor, and Mike Kronk became a state senator.
Oh my God. Really?
Right.
I did not know that.
Right.
Okay. All right. That's interesting.
The other thing that's interesting is that they mentioned, again, this is where I think you and I might have been looking at different layers of the onion. Paddock's hard drive was missing. You knew that.
Mm-hmm.
ABC News dismissed that by listing about 5 other mass shooters whose hard drives were all missing.
That's all red.
And I go, I'm also supposed to feel better that all the mass shooters take out their. So well, again, except for the fact that it might mean that none of the shooters are legit shooters. None.
Well, again, you have to sort of roll everything back and say, wait a second.
Right.
The whole narrative and so many aspects of it are irrelevant based on my research, right? So, you're organic lithium and I'm kind of this, right? This is my baby. So the net of it is, if there's no gunfire coming from 32-135, and there are only 8 shots that came from that little room, and none of them killed anybody, well, then no one was killed from Mandalay Bay.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
All right. So now,
but why do you? So your narrative was that it was a hit from the helicopters and all up and down the strip too.
Okay.
Right. Shooters all up and down the strip.
Yes. Both on foot and in helicopters. Both on foot. And
I also inferred from something you said that they had to call an audible because they were trying to flush out the Crown Prince.
Well, that was the plan. Flushing them out is the plan.
They were going to blow up the tanks.
The tanks, right. So the audible was when the tanks don't go. So it looks like.
But then the question is, why do you need all these other? Were all these other crazy things all the audible? Were they all sort of after the fact?
The size of that blast had those actually gone off from the actual hits of those rounds. And again, those 223 or 5.56 rounds, 7.62 by 39 rounds. If there was an AK up there, I wouldn't be surprised if there was, or anything heavier. Had that tank have gone, this is Al Qaeda level destruction. I'm sure Jim will agree with me. The amount of planning here is what's absolutely baffling me.
But I know he had help. Do you agree?
That this is a very deeply planned and well orchestrated killing spree.
It was just over an hour ago when the sheriff said this about the possibility of him having help.
Creations.
All right, so let's think about who were the guys who were hanging off the sides of the helicopters with H&K G36 submachine guns or machine guns,
right?
Shooting women in the head, right? So who are these guys?
Repeatedly in the head.
Right. So who are they? Right. So these are it's a group of people, right? So, and in order to get to this, we had to look at who has helicopters. Who's got a bunch of helicopters that can show up in
military?
Yeah, in Vegas. Well, it turns out that we've been selling helicopters to the Saudis, and they train just 263 miles as the crow flies from Vegas, and that's about the range of these helicopters. Meaning, you could fly to Kingman, Arizona, which is about, I don't know, what is it, like an hour's drive from Vegas, but to fly, it's minutes. They could refuel there very easily. So the net of it is there's a whole bunch of Saudi trainers in Mesa, Arizona at the Boeing Helicopter Company sitting on the tarmac. And we've been training their pilots in the United States for years. So
in your opinion, the shooters were Saudis. Obviously, the people in the Boeing site know exactly what the hell happened because they couldn't have been. You think it happened and then the Saudis came back and said, now you're going to shut your mouths?
No, I think what happened is you've got a bunch of Saudi pilots, right? You've got Saudi pilots that are training at Boeing and McDonnell Douglas Aircraft, which was across the street. McDonnell Douglas Helicopter was across the street. It since has been acquired by Boeing. and they're training in AH-6Is, they're training in Blackhawks, and they're training in Apaches, right? Everything they sell, the Saudis are buying. And the guys that they send over to train are the Saudi Arabian National Guard. Now, the Saudi Arabian National Guard is different from the Saudi Army in that this is the group that protects the royal family. It's the royal family's personal army, the Saudi Arabian National Guard.
From RedstoneAlabama.com, the Arsenal's Security Assistance Command works with many different countries to help build up their armed forces. One of those countries is Saudi Arabia. Jeff Martin explains tonight how the command is working to basically create a military for that country's royal family, and doing so from scratch.
Over the past several years, a good portion of the billions of dollars in weapons bought by Saudi Arabia has come through the Redstone Arsenal-based U.S. Army Security Assistance Command. That unit actually has an office in Saudi Arabia where hundreds of Americans are training and building up the royal family's military, known as the Saudi National Guard.
Our mission is to provide train, advise, and assist, and also the foreign military sales aspect of fielding the equipment.
That's Major General Frank Muth, who heads the program office. He says the latest focus for his office has been on aviation.
As of 18 months ago, they had no aircraft, and now we have fielded the 1st Brigade.
The goal is for 3 of those brigades, which according to the program office will be used to protect the kingdom's borders and important areas like oil fields.
Aviation provides that flexibility and that speed and that range.
According to a 2010 announcement, the fleet will be made up of 72 UH-60M Blackhawk and 12 MD-530F utility helicopters, along with 24 AH-64E Apache and 36 AH-6I attack helicopters. But why is America helping to build the Saudi National Guard in the first place? According to the program office, building it up increases the strategic readiness of the American Army. You could read more about the program office's work at our website. For RedstoneAlabama.com, I'm Jeff Martin.
And the head of the Saudi Arabian National Guard is a guy named Maiteb bin Abdullah. Well, once upon a time, he thought he might actually be the next king of Saudi Arabia because his dad was King Abdullah. Maiteb bin Abdullah runs Saudi Arabian National Guard. He's kind of old school. We've got Mohammed bin Nayef, who is the head of Saudi intelligence or counterintelligence, and he wins the CIA award.
Check out these 2 Saudi princes. This one's the 57-year-old crown prince. And this one, the one doing all the hand kissing, is his younger cousin. Listen to what the older cousin is saying. He's being forced to give up his power and to pass the crown prince title to his younger cousin, a guy who's almost half his age. This is Mohammed bin Salman. In the West, we just call him MBS. And since this moment in June, he's consolidated power so swiftly and so thoroughly that in Saudi Arabia, they just know him as Mr. Everything. As Crown Prince, MBS will become king. And with all of this new power, MBS is seeking to assert his dominance throughout the Middle East. One of his big policies has been a vehement opposition to Saudi Arabia's neighbor, Iran. And on that note, he has found an ally in the White House. Inside the kingdom, MBS is also seeking to cement his authority and dominance over the royal family.
Saudi Arabia's young crown prince arresting hundreds of his own cousins and
crackdown on corruption. 11 princes and nearly 40 current or former officials detained, reportedly being held at the lavish Ritz-Carlton.
Yes, if you're a Saudi prince, jail is the Ritz-Carlton. MBS called this a corruption crackdown, and he branded himself as the financially responsible anti-corruption leader. But we're talking about a guy who recently purchased one of the most expensive homes in the world, and who last year spent $500 million on a painting. He clearly had other motives for this crackdown beyond fiscal responsibility. One thing to realize is that the Saudi royal family is made up of thousands of members who use public money generated from oil revenues to fund their unthinkably excessive lifestyles. So it wouldn't be hard for MBS to crack down on.
So you've got all these characters over there, and then you've got this article in The Guardian in 2015 where basically they say, you know what? This Mohammed bin Salman's 31 years old, and they're going to make him the crown prince. This is absurd.
Big problem. Yeah,
it's like, guys, you're not supposed to publish that. It's like you don't admit that you're going to plan a coup. You're supposed to keep that stuff a secret. But no, they published it in The Guardian and said, no, we're all talking about it and how we're going to do it and what we're going to do about it because this isn't going to work out. And I was like, this is remarkable. So there you have a motive. You've got a whole bunch of people in royalty, so basically the grandchildren, great-grandchildren of Ibn Saud, that are saying Mohammed bin Salman is 31. He can't wait till he's 61. We're all in our 70s, for God's sakes.
Welcome back. I am just back from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, where I spent the last week. I witnessed what seems like the beginning of a revolution. Happening there. I was honored to interview the future king of Saudi Arabia, His Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, on stage at the kingdom's Future Investment Initiative conference. During our interview, His Royal Highness sent a message to the Saudi people and the world that he is leading a new vision in Saudi. While being interviewed by me, a symbol of freedom in my jacket and pants, not covered up, the country was buzzing about his remarks.
You have an incredibly beautiful country. You have the resources, but you are having radical ideas, some might say. Recently, you've announced that you will soon allow women to drive. You are allowing foreign investment in your beautiful country. Why now? What triggered this change in thinking?
You know, and Al-Weed bin Talal, the guy's single largest shareholder in Citibank, single largest shareholder in Twitter, at the time. He's the wealthiest guy in Saudi Arabia. And he's going, I'm a direct descendant of Ibn Saud. And you're going to make the 31-year-old is going to be the king?
Which would take eternity for him to go through the wash and come out the other end, right?
So you've got a whole bunch of these.
And on that note, he has found an ally in the White House. Inside the kingdom, MBS is also seeking to cement his authority and dominance over the royal family.
Saudi Arabia's young crown prince arresting hundreds of his own cousins and
crackdown on corruption. 11 princes and nearly 40 current or former officials detained, reportedly being held at the lavish Ritz-Carlton.
Yes, if you're a Saudi prince, jail is the Ritz-Carlton. MBS called this a corruption crackdown, and he branded himself as the financially responsible anti-corruption leader. But we're talking about a guy who recently purchased one of the most expensive homes in the world, and who last year spent $500 million on a painting. He clearly had other motives for this crackdown beyond fiscal responsibility. One thing to realize is that the Saudi royal family is made up of thousands of members who use public money generated from oil revenues to fund their unthinkably excessive lifestyles. So it wouldn't be hard for MBS to crack down on anyone he wants to. MBS's second big move was to loosen the strict moral and social rules of the kingdom. He stripped the religious police of their right to make arrests. He expanded women's rights in society, including giving them the right to drive. On the surface, these are progressive social reforms meant to modernize Saudi society. But like the anti-corruption crackdowns, the move is another effort to seize power. Saudi society is built on a sort of pact between the royal family, which is called the House of Saud, and the vast religious establishment run by conservative Islamic clerics. The clerics give the Saud family legitimacy by giving them their blessing as rulers of the kingdom. In exchange, the family allows the clerics to strictly enforce their uncompromising, puritanical version of Islam within the kingdom. This Faustian bargain means that Saudi princes, like MBS and others, can live these indulgent lifestyles and make deals with the West, but still retain religious legitimacy in the eyes of the public. It's a balance that has kept the kingdom stable in this very volatile region. But now MBS has violated his family's part of the bargain, arresting hardline clerics who might speak out against his progressive reforms. This could shake one of the foundational pillars of Saudi society.
Predecessor to the primary religion of Saudi Arabia, a version of Islam called Wahhabism. ISIS also claims strong ties to Wahhabism. So what is Wahhabism and how does it affect this region? Wahhabism is a strict form of Sunni Islam named after its founder, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. He preached that all Muslims should strictly adhere to the Quran's teachings. Over time, Wahhabism has grown to have a domineering influence on Saudi Arabian religious culture and politics. In Saudi Arabia, Wahhabism is seen as the true interpretation of Islam. They also believe that anyone who does not practice their version of Islam are heretics. This teaching has been the cause of tension within the Islamic world because Wahhabism sees other followers of Islam, like Shias and Sufis, as non-believers, strongly encouraging followers to show no mercy to non-believers and issuing orders to kill anyone outside of the faith. And this isn't the first time that Wahhabism has been connected to a terror organization. Alongside ISIS, Wahhabi teachings have also heavily influenced Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. On the surface, it may seem like terror groups are adhering to the strict practice of Islam as a part of the religious crusade that allows them to justify violent action. However, there might be another reason why Wahhabism is being embraced by groups like ISIS. Experts believe that their ulterior motive might be financial. Wahhabism has its roots in Saudi Arabia, one of the richest countries in the world. It's understood that some Saudi charities and private companies are used as a front to fund extremist Wahhabi organizations like ISIS to the tune of $100 billion over the last 30 years.
Older generation cousins of MBS.
But the Boeing guys, no, I get all this. What I don't get, so the Boeing guys must have known when these helicopters came back. By the way,
When
their
they came
Saudi
back.
buddies just
Yes.
shot the shit out of Vegas.
So the Boeing guys knew after the fact, but remember when it takes place? It takes place on a Sunday night at 10 o'clock. So if these guys show up at the airfield at 7 p.m., at 6:30 p.m. in Mesa, Arizona on Sunday night and say, yeah, we're going to take the equipment out. We're going to go run a training mission. We're going to fly up there. Nobody's asking questions. These guys fly them every day. Nobody's asking them questions. It's their equipment. Nobody's
So
questioning them.
do you think they knew that once they hit the Crown Prince, that was being the plan,
Yeah.
that 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 would be known by the guys at Boeing, so they weren't going to try to hide it after the fact. They just had to pull it off, then get back. Now, so they were counting on the Boeing guys to shut the hell up.
I don't think the Boeing guys have a say in it. All right, so what happens at Boeing? And after the fact, the Boeing guys have got to be going, oh my God, what just happened here?
You shot up Vegas.
Right. Now, the FBI shows up at Boeing helicopter, but they've got a different story that they tell the public about. Now, why did the FBI show up at Boeing helicopter in Mesa, Arizona?
Because they knew in advance.
Because a guy named Doug Haig sold zirconium-tipped rounds to Stephen Paddock, supposedly. Doug Haig worked at Boeing helicopter in Mesa, Arizona. So the FBI tells the public, yeah, there's this really bad guy who makes ammunition and sold it to Stephen Paddock. We're going to go arrest him and investigate him. And so we're going to be out there. So if you see a bunch of FBI vehicles out at Boeing in Mesa, Arizona, it's because of this guy who makes ammunition. That was the cover story. Doug Haig.
So
Yeah.
Paddock, what I was able to dredge up is Paddock had affiliations with what's called Volant LLC. And Volant Associates LLC is an intelligence-tied company. And I could never determine if they were the same thing. Paddock's brother works for something like Teradyne or something. Mary Lou gets sent abroad. Is all that just
Red
garbage?
herring. It's all just red herring.
Pre-planned red herring, or after the fact?
Well, it's interesting. So you kind of have to look at those press conferences that Lombardo.
They change.
Right, exactly. And so first he says, we got a lone gunman. It's 1:30 in the morning. We've got the guy. The guy is down. We engaged him, and he's currently dead. Okay. Then later that week, Lombardo is shaken up.
In the early throes of this tragedy, I had advised each and every one of you that items of information were going to change. The dynamics of this investigation is far-reaching, it's wide, it's huge, and you can't expect exact answers in the early throes. My intent in the early throes were to give you the information to provide that calmness in the community, to ensure that we didn't have a second player or a third player out hiding in the community intending to cause us harm. So there was no integrity question associated with that, as I've experienced through the cyberspace, questioning my integrity. I provided you the information as I knew it, and everybody in here knew it was going to change. So we will get through that. I'm not giving you 100% satisfaction associated with what I'm going to give you today, because I think some of that's going to change. And we will not know that until we're completed with this investigation. So back to where we were. I think it's important for the community of Clark County to realize we use 17 separate medical facilities to accommodate the injuries associated with this event. And that speaks volumes for the medical community here in Las Vegas, in Clark County. And it seems to be lost in the narrative associated with this, that it was strictly a public safety, fire, and police event. No, it was including the medical community. And I think it's important for me to give them their due respect. So 17 separate medical facilities. Today's numbers, 546 reported injuries. 501 of those have been discharged. In other words, they responded to a medical facility, they were treated for their wounds, and subsequently left to seek a healing process wherever they chose to do so. 58 is still the number of individuals that have died. Now, this is an important piece. 45 individuals are still hospitalized. Some of those are in critical condition. So 58 may raise. By the grace of God, it doesn't. And we shall continue to move forward. The medical profession will provide all the medical care necessary, but sometimes it's people meet their demise outside of our control. So I'm hoping that number does not raise, but today's number is 58. The fuel tanks. I'm going to read this narrative so my words do not get changed, but I want to provide you some information in reference to the fuel tanks. It is believed the fuel tanks were fired upon with intent.
He shows up at a press conference, I think it's on Wednesday, and he has a hard time keeping his emotions in check. You can tell he's choked up.
I saw that. He's
choked up, something's up. And I think I know what happened right before that press conference. Aaron Rouse is the special agent in charge in Las Vegas. Aaron Rouse used to be the FBI's head of counterintelligence. He is the special agent in charge of Las Vegas, Aaron Rouse, formerly the FBI's head of counterintelligence. Aaron Rouse shows up the night of the shooting. Aaron Rouse is there at 1:30 in the morning, standing right behind Lombardo. Lombardo tells you, we got the guy, lone gunman up in the hotel. We got the guy. And I'm watching this and going, I watched the footage and I'm watching it live. Right? It's 1:30 in the morning in Las Vegas, but at the time I was living in Thailand. It was 3:30 in the afternoon or something. You know, I'm watching this thing unfold. And I'm saying, what? How do you know it's a lone gunman? You guys got up to the top of the Excalibur?
They always do that.
You got to the rooftops of all those hotels around the venue? How'd you get up there so quick to all the tops of all the Tropicana? You search the roof of the Tropicana for brass casings at 1 in the morning and you're done already? That's remarkable. How'd you guys do that? So I wasn't buying that at all. And I started to look at footage, and that's when I started to realize it was an aerial attack, because you see these helicopters flying the wrong way, flying where there's nothing on flight radar, meaning they have...
See, I totally missed the aerial attack completely. So that never hit my radar until
that changes
it
everything.
must have been a year later. Now, I knew something was all screwed up, but it was all, for me, it was all ground level screwed up. It was all the red herring screwed up.
So this is why the documentary that Mindy put together kind of wastes a lot of time, because she talks about like the guy from Australia who doesn't know what room he's staying in. Who cares? There's a guy from Australia who doesn't know what room he's staying in. To me, that's like a moron. So that's not a story. So to me, you have to think of this again. You kind of have to start at the beginning and say, so wait a second. If this was the case and these were commandos coming from helicopter training school in Arizona, flying up there with a bevy of helicopters, 3, 4, 5, 6 helicopters, pulling this thing off, they thought they were going to die. So that's the first thing you have to kind of accept, is the guys who signed up to kill the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia knew that there's a pretty good chance they're going to die. That's the first thing. All right, so they're all accepting that they're probably going to get killed, and if the mission fails, they will certainly be beheaded. All right, there's no doubt they will be beheaded. If they failed. If they fail.
And it failed.
And
right?
it failed. And MBS supposedly prosecuted a whole bunch of really bad men who killed Jamal Khashoggi, didn't he?
Oh, so I wrote about Jamal Khashoggi, and in no way was successful at connecting him with Vegas. I knew that the Khashoggi story was all screwed up. I actually nicknamed him ODK. I called him One Dead Khashoggi, and I was squealing relentlessly about why the hell do we care that some guy got fed to the camels over in Saudi Arabia. I don't care. What is all the noise about Khashoggi? I never successfully picked up on Khashoggi's role.
Well, and the role is based on his connections. Khashoggi used to work for Al Walid bin Talal. A joint venture with like Fox or something that Al Walid was the head of, and Jamal Khashoggi was the number 2 guy. Jamal Khashoggi was also number 2 or number 3 at the GIP, the Saudi General Intelligence Presidency, is their version of our CIA.
Hi everyone, today we have a very important guest with us, Jamal Khashoggi, the very prominent Saudi journalist. Welcome, Mr. Jamal, how are you?
Ahlan wa sahlan, thank you for having me here. But he is also maintaining the old ways of repressive system. Actually, he's expanding at that, and he's totally, he doesn't need it. There is no opposition to him. I just don't understand, why does he have to go? By embracing Arab Spring, respecting people's wishes in change and democracy.
And so Khashoggi was like the number 2 or number 3 guy over there. He was one of the head intelligence people. So calling him a journalist, when it's like calling Peter Strzok a journalist or Christopher Wray a journalist. It's like, I don't think Christopher Wray is a journalist, but that's how they refer to
or Maxwell, a journalist.
Yeah, exactly. So now what happens is Jamal Khashoggi was assassinated or killed October 2nd, 2018 in Turkey at 8 o'clock in the morning. 8 o'clock in the morning, October 2nd in Turkey is 10 p.m. in Las Vegas.
So it was a simultaneous hit of Khashoggi and, in theory, the Crown Prince.
No. Khashoggi is killed on the 1-year anniversary
of
the Vegas shooting. MBS is very poetic, and he's one of these eye for an eye kind of guys.
That's like taking out the Kerch Bridge on Putin's birthday.
Exactly. So this was his appointment at the Turkish embassy was at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
That's 10 p.m. Las Vegas time, the day before.
So it was to commemorate it.
It's 1 year ago. And now we're going to introduce you. We're going to introduce you to the deli slicer, and we're going to cut you up into pieces, and we're going to film it. And I'm going to show it to the cousins at the next get together. And I'm going to explain
I didn't know that part. I didn't know that part at all.
So his connections to Awalid bin Talal, to the other heads of the GIP, the General Intelligence Presidency, which Mansour bin Mukran's father, Mukran bin Abdulaziz, was the head of the GIP. I mean, again, you got Mukran bin Abdulaziz, Maiteb bin Abdullah, Mohammed bin Nayef. Well, Mansour bin Mukran, the son of Mukran bin Abdulaziz, I believe is the guy who wrote the article for The Guardian in 2015 saying this is what's happening and all the elders are pissed off. His father, Mukran bin Abdulaziz, had been crown prince and was pushed aside.
One of Salman's first actions has been to immediately appoint his half-brother Mukrin as his crown prince and heir. The rapid move is aimed at warding off fears of a succession crisis at a moment when Saudi Arabia faces unprecedented turmoil on its borders.
And Mansour's going, what are you talking about? My dad was going to be the king, which means I was going to be the crown prince,
right? Yeah.
And now this 31-year-old is pushing my dad out of the picture? That means you just pushed me out of the picture.
So the motive is very clear. Now I got that part from one of your pods.
So November 5th is the night of the long sword. An invitation goes out from King Salman to come to the Ritz-Carlton in Riyadh, and you're going to be entertained by Shakira.
We drive in under police escort just past midnight. No one enters here now without official permission. The world's most talked about hotel. Riyadh's most palatial, most prestigious. Now a gilded prison. I'm taken in by Saudi officials, told don't film faces, don't record conversations. Here in the early hours of the morning, there's still people in the lobby drinking coffee, as you'd find in any of the five-star hotels here in the capital. Most of the people who have now been forced to stay here are keeping to themselves, trying to limit any further damage to their reputation. Their mobile phones have been taken away from them, but there is a hotline that's available to them. They can call their lawyers, family members, even leading members of the companies they're still trying to keep running. The world's most pampered prisoners have every comfort except freedom. The state is picking up this bill. As far as detention centers go, this one is beyond compare. Luxury swimming pool, restaurants, a gym, everything is glittering. There's even a bowling alley, but most prisoners just stay in their rooms. I'm taken to meet one suspect. He doesn't give me his name. Says he spends his time with his lawyer, focusing on his case. I'm told not to ask about it. But I get a briefing. Senior officials conducting this crackdown say it's not a formal investigation yet. They call it a friendly process, but it's clearly fraught. We're being told that when people were brought here around midnight on November the 4th, they were understandably angry. Some of them thought this would just be a show and it wouldn't last. And then when they realized they were here to stay, they were furious. Almost everyone here, 95% I was told, are willing to make a deal, to give back what are said to be substantial sums of money in order to get out of here. The Crown Prince, 32 years old, is taking on fellow princes, senior ministers, some of the biggest billionaires, tackling corruption, concentrating power. Weeks on, many are still asking questions about why this purge happened here and now, outside this Gildan prison. It certainly has gone down well. Many Saudis welcome an end to the rampant corruption in the kingdom. But there are risks too. The ambitious Crown Prince risks creating enemies and uncertainty, which could endanger the very stability and reforms, his kingdom so badly needs.
It was either Shakira or Ciara. I can't tell the difference. I'm semi-dyslexic. So it was either Shakira or Ciara was going to be entertainment, big party, November 5th, Ritz-Carlton, Riyadh. And then they locked the doors. And Blackwater's there.
When you say Blackwater, a group from Blackwater?
Blackwater, yeah.
How many? How many?
Enough that Al Walid bin Talal didn't leave for months and lost a lot of weight. He lost a lot of weight. Yeah, I'll bet the bottoms of his feet are nice and tender now. So they've got this technique with the garden hose that's very effective. So they get billions from these guys. They're all billionaires. Every one of them, they got mega yachts, these ultra luxury yachts. They're billionaires, every one of them. Mohammed bin Nayef is a billionaire. And MBS shakes them down and says, I know what you did, but you're Assad. So you're going to give me half your money. You're going to sign this. And you're never going to do it again. A year later, he's got the footage of Jamal Khashoggi being sliced up. Jamal Khashoggi's not Assad. Any questions? You guys want to play? If you want to keep doing this, we're going to bring out the deli slicer again, and we're just going to go slice.
So how did Khashoggi get killed? Is that a metaphor or was?
Yeah, I mean they chopped him up. But what would I do? Right?
I knew they chopped him up, and I refer to it as feeding him to the camels.
Yeah, no.
But
so he's in a conference room. They tape him to the chair, and what would I do if I'm filming it and I want to make an impression on my cousins?
One piece at a time.
Yeah, I'm going to cut here. I'm going to cut here. I'm going to cut here, here, and here, here, right? I'm just going to work it.
Right.
And make him scream and blood all over the place. And I want the cousins terrified.
You bet.
I want this to stop because the chances are I've got the recordings of Jamal Khashoggi because I own everything the CIA owns.
And of course, some very powerful surveillance tech.
And what we enable is to actually intercept phone calls, gather intelligence in order to prevent, hopefully, terror attacks.
So you have this rucksack in this box, and you can put it down in a location, in a crowd at a protest, for instance, something like that, and it can intercept 30 phone calls simultaneously within that radius.
This small box. So if you're in a crowded city, such as Paris, for example, you can be getting thousands of calls an hour.
I guess, when you're intercepting that many calls, you must be intercepting lots of people you don't want to, lots of innocent people just going about using their phones. So how do you make sure that you don't get the wrong people on the call?
Well, the thing is, what we would recommend doing is mass interception. Of course, we don't want to invade anybody's privacy. But at the end of the day, the problem is that you can never know what cell phone the criminals will be using.
Another stand was selling a piece of kit that could rip a huge amount of data off phones that had their Wi-Fi switched on. So it's like a Facebook profile that you put in front of me. It's like photos, it's passwords, details about his phone, his device, his carrier, his country, his address, his web history. Is there a concern that innocent people may be caught up in that process?
You know, we sell a car. How you drive it, it's your responsibility.
I buy all the same crap from Israel that they buy. I can listen to any cell phone. I got Pegasus. He's got everything. He hacked Jeff Bezos's cell phone and got Jeff Bezos's photos with Lauren Sanchez. That was MBS who did that. Okay? Because Jeff Bezos was harboring Jamal Khashoggi.
Oh, God.
Okay, so he hacks into Bezos's phone, leaks the Lauren Sanchez thing. Bezos ends up getting divorced, costs him $60-80 billion to break up with Mackenzie, right? And Jamal Khashoggi is chopped to bits on the 1-year anniversary to the hour. 1 year. Now, Mansour bin Mukran, the son of Mukran bin Abdulaziz, never makes it to the Riyadh, never makes it to the Ritz-Carlton. He and his entourage are shot out of the sky in their helicopter.
Subtle.
Eye for an eye. Everybody else we're going to beat and take your money. But this little bastard, he's not going to make it to the party. He's not going to make it. And they took out the whole entourage. I think, he's got a big helicopter. Took them all out.
So did authorities in the U.S. know the Vegas shooting was going to take place in advance? Certainly.
No. If you don't speak Arabic, you didn't know anything about this. Is Al-Qaeda inside of the Sang. The Sang is 250,000 men. Okay, 250,000 men protect the royals. That is not the army.
Wow.
Kind of makes those guys with the funny hats. Who are those funny hat guys in the UK, right? The guys with the big furry hats. Kind of makes them look silly. You got 250,000 commandos.
That's the big Praetorian Guard right there.
It's unreal. And they report to the king, and that's who, right? Now, the guy who's running that operation knows full well what the exfiltration protocols are. In what scenario do we have to grab the crown prince and his wife and kids and say, sir, we need to leave the building now?
Right.
Under what? Well, they know.
Blowing up a tank. Blowing up the tank.
Blowing up the tanks, and if that doesn't work, well, then we need bedlam. We need complete bedlam outside. Right. So for a bunch of Al-Qaeda guys, shooting women in cowboy boots and hot pants? These are Sharia guys. Yeah, they're Wahhabis.
That's sport.
These are Wahhabis.
That's sport. Yeah,
So to
that's
them,
sport.
these
That's
are
morally
heathens.
sound. Yeah.
They're doing God's work.
So how did they miss him? How did they miss him?
So you've got a couple different attacks, and this is where you start to understand, okay, so what was the role of Stephen Paddock? Stephen Paddock had 3 women checked into the room with him.
We're going to really learn a lot more about what happened in Vegas once we learn the identities of these 3 women.
All right. Okay, so room 135 on the 32nd floor, registered guest, his last name is Paddock. On the 32nd floor. That's where they believe the shooting's coming from. The guest name's Paddock, Paddock. OCK. First name's Steven with a PH. And he's registered there with 3 other females. I don't know if you want all their names. Are you there? Yeah, there's 3 other females staying there with him. I don't know if they have anyone on that floor yet. Last I heard, SWAT was on the 31st floor. I don't know if they're making that up. No, security say that's where the shooting's coming from. Yep. Hold on. Are you there? They have a checkout date. They checked in on the 25th, and they're checking out on October 2nd.
October 1, 2017, 23 hours and 57 seconds.
I've got a couple units up in the control room, and they're briefing that on the 32nd floor, room 135, possible suspect ID is going to be last name Easy, Adam, David, Ocean, Charlie, King. First name Stephen with a PH. That's who the room is registered to. Break. There's also 3 females that are registered to that room. First name is Joanne, Joanne. Last name. Second subject, Laura. Last name. Third subject, Katie. Last name. They checked in on 25 September. Scheduled to check out on October 2nd.
Joanne, Katie, and Laura. And the room keys are all over the counter. We see them sitting. There's 5 room keys sitting on the counter. I never checked into a hotel room and asked for 5 room keys. And I certainly never hired a prostitute and asked her to give her ID at the front so she could get a room. Well, nobody does that. Nobody registers prostitutes to the room. Nobody does that. He has 3 women registered to the room, which means he knew them. And there were 2 vehicles there with him. Mary Lou is in the Philippines, but some chick is running around flashing her card. It's one of those 3 chicks. He's got Joanne, Katie, and Laura staying in the room with him. We see women's clothing in the room.
Was Paddock an arms dealer?
No.
That's what I thought.
No. It's so, again, it's Occam's razor stuff. I shoot, and I shoot a lot. Okay, I shoot long distance stuff, right?
Right.
And I own a fair number of guns, but not a crazy number of guns. But if you said to me, you know, John, I'd love to go out in the desert and shoot some stuff. And if you could teach me how to shoot something that's a quarter of a mile away, that would be amazing. And I can do that. I can teach you how to do that, right? It would take us about an hour, hour and a half. And I could have you hitting something at a quarter of a mile away pretty much 8 out of 10 times. And then you could say to me, if I wanted to buy this gun, could you sell it to me? And the answer is yes. If you're not a felon, it's perfectly legal for me to sell you my guns privately. Now, if I had 20 guns...
That's still true? Is that still true?
Absolutely. As long as you're not a felon. Private gun sales are perfectly legal. By the way, as is bringing your guns into a hotel room is perfectly legal. When I travel...
23 is nuts.
So hang on, though. But you got to think, where did he think he was going the next day?
The desert. The desert.
Why does he have a minivan with him? He's got a minivan and a Kia something. Kia Sonata, Sonoma, whatever it was. A Tucson, Hyundai Tucson, whatever the hell it was. There were 2 vehicles there. A minivan and another one. Well, he's got 3 women with him. Registered to the room. And he's got 24 guns. And tannerite. You know what tannerite does, right? You take out in the desert, you put some tannerite like in a watermelon, and it blows up. It explodes when you shoot it.
It's that Jif bottle. Watch
that. Wow.
So it's a contact explosive?
Exactly. It's a 2-part.
Okay.
You mix the 2 powders, you put it out there, but it has to be hit by a projectile that's going faster than the speed of sound. If it's not supersonic, it won't ignite. It won't blow. Yeah, well, this stuff is pretty powerful. There's some videos on YouTube of people taking like 100 pounds of tannerite and blowing up an entire building.
What we've got here is 164 pounds of tannerite in a Rubbermaid tub. Bench ready now, but the tannerite will be sitting on the bucket underneath these main beams of the barn.
With 100 pounds. It's powerful stuff. He has tannerite. He's got 24 weapons, and he's got a minivan, and he's got 3 women with him. Well, let's see. If that were me, it tells me I'm planning to take a bunch of guys out to the desert the next day shooting, And they're probably a bunch of high rollers. They're probably a bunch of Middle Eastern guys with McLarens and Ferraris and Lamborghinis, or at least that's what the girls told me.
Got our machine gun inbound right there.
There we go.
Coming in hot. So
what type of guns are on board?
We got an M60 E6. So.
And what's that for the novice like me who knows nothing about guns?
Kind of like Vietnam, Navy SEAL era, shoot from the hip, Rambo type of.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Good. There you go. Getting education today. All right, you ready? Just don't touch the barrel because it's super hot.
Okay.
When you're ready, yeah.
All right, you guys ready?
Yeah. Yeah, it climbs a little bit.
I was trying to hit everything I shot there.
I think you got some of the
Yeah.
And the girls told me that these guys are willing to pay 10 grand a rifle. And I got 24 of them. So there's a $250,000 outing for me. And I'm going to take them out in the minivan, out to the desert. We're going to blow some stuff up. And then this guy's going to say, I really like this one. And that's going to say, oh, I want to buy that one. And this guy's going to buy these two. And at $10,000, $20,000 a rifle, these guys throw cash around. They don't care. To them, that's just, that's how much they tip when they go out at night.
Right.
So that's what I think he thought was happening. He was set up by the women. He was honeypotted.
Right.
And when there's a knock on the door and the guys who they're meeting, they're going to have some drinks, go out for dinner before the next day they go shooting, they'll come up to the suite. He opens the door. Hey, I'm Steven. Great to meet you. Bang. Steven's dead.
So he got the first bullet.
He's the first one to die. Now we've got four.
In fact, I think he was cold, right? I mean, I think he died well in advance.
And he's blanched. And the guys look at him and they go, this guy's been dead for, this guy's been dead for a while. Like, this guy didn't just die. So, they know what a dead body was. This guy's been lying there since, 4 p.m. or something,
Blood pooling in his ass, right?
Yeah. All right.
Blood pooling in his ass, right?
But there's more to this. So hang on. So now the guys come in. Hey, I'm Steven. Looking forward tomorrow. Go out to the desert. Going to have a great time. Bang. He's dead. These are commandos. These are Sang, Al-Qaeda. They're here to kill the Crown Prince. They want to get upstairs, and this lovely 6'4" white guy just provided us with an entire arsenal.
There's a whole suitcase full of loadout, AK, Max.
It was definitely AK fully automatic.
There's a whole suitcase full of loadout, AK, Max.
It was definitely AK fully automatic.
There's a whole suitcase full of loadout, AK, Max.
It was definitely AK fully automatic.
There's a whole suitcase full of loadout, AK, Max.
Grab what you want. You want an AR-15 now. Turns out there's a whole suitcase of AK-47 magazines. but there's no AK-47s in the inventory. Why would you bring a whole suitcase of AK-47 magazines?
Good question.
If you don't have any AK-47s.
So they took what they took what they needed, and left the rest.
And they took what they're familiar with. They took the AKs and left the ARs. They don't shoot ARs. Right. They all like AKs. And they took the AK stuff and they went up the stairwell, because 3 floors up from Paddock's room is the Four Seasons. And the Four Seasons is owned by Al-Walid bin Talal. Al-Walid bin Talal says to MBS, his cousin, my cousin, salam alaikum, I want you to spend Ashura with your wife and children in my presidential suite at the Four Seasons. Right? I own it, right? He owns 45% of the Four Seasons. And he says to MBS, I insist. It's a gift. I want you to bring the whole entourage. In fact, I'll give you the whole wing of the hotel. You take the whole thing, 35 up to 40. Take the whole thing. Bring the family, because Ashura is the Muslim equivalent to Passover. It's when they tell the story of Exodus, because Muslims and Jews both celebrate and study the Old Testament.
All right, Moses. I know you. What's this really about?
Ramesses, look. What do you see?
A greater Egypt than that of my father.
That is not what I see.
Moses, I cannot change what you see. I have to maintain the ancient traditions. I bear the weight of my father's crown.
Do you still not understand what Seti was?
He was a great leader.
His hands bore the blood of thousands of children.
Slaves.
My people. And I can no longer hide in the desert while they suffer. At your hands.
So, you have returned, only to free them.
And so the story of Exodus is in both religions, but the Jews call it Passover, Muslims call it Ashura. Ashura was October 1st, 2017. It's the story of Exodus. So telling the story to the kids with a pyramid out the window?
Right.
I insist.
I heard that part, right?
We've got a sphinx. We've got a pyramid. The kids, come on. It doesn't get any better than that. I insist, MBS, you take the Four Seasons, bring the whole family, bring the entourage. It's a gift from me. It's the story of Exodus. So telling the story to the kids with a pyramid out the window?
Right.
I insist.
I heard that part, right?
We've got a sphinx. We've got a pyramid. The kids, come on. It doesn't get any better than that. I insist, MBS, you take the Four Seasons, bring the whole family, bring the entourage. It's a gift from me. And that's how they know he's going to be there. They put him there.
I got that. So then how did they miss him?
Well, the guys go upstairs. Something happens at 9:47 p.m. We see a window. Looks like a window gets blown out of the Four Seasons at 9:47. p.m. It appears that a security detail gets him out of the building because Maverick Helicopters takes off at 10:13 p.m. with what we see is 7 helicopters, but what dog walking guy said 14 of them returned, and we know 2 of them didn't return. So we see 2 of the helicopters turn off their transponders. So of the 7 that we see depart, only 5 come back. But dog walking guy said, no, 14 came back. So if 2 of them went the other way, that means 16 helicopters left from Maverick. during the shooting?
These are people who just got off a helicopter tour hours ago. They were shuttled up the strip here. Can you just again explain to me what you heard as you were landing?
Its pilots came inside with this look of pretty much like horror. And he was like, "You guys hear that?" And guns were still going off at this point. And we were like, "No." And we ran outside. At this point, we both got, he goes, we're done. Something's really bad's happening."
These are people who just got off a helicopter tour hours ago. They were shuttled up the strip here. Can you just again explain to me what you heard as you were landing?
It was just loads of gunshots. So many gunshots, just over and over and over again. Constant.
And did you realize at first it was gunshots? A lot of people did not realize that.
No, we thought it was fireworks, yeah.
And so explain to me when you realized it was fire, or when you realized it was gunshots rather, what happened? I know you already said it, but just explain to me again, what did you guys do?
We went straight into the building.
The pilot got us into a safe, secure place, and
then we got moved into the basement where it was like bulletproof glass and there was loads of doors. So it was really secure. It was scary.
But the people coming from the festival was still running in, and the pilots was going out and bringing people in and everything. So
that was the exfiltration. We hear air traffic control talking to Maverick and saying, "What's going on over there at the concert venue?" And the Maverick guy goes, "Oh, it just looks like the concert's getting out."
Maverick 32 Las Vegas Tower, proceed as requested. Report over the garage. Any idea what's going on over there across the street? Just off your left there, across the street, so by the left door. Okay, thanks.
Oh, you're talking about the
We just see a lot of police cars, and more just headed that way. Showing 640, connect departure.
Reporting, showing 640.
Showing 552, winds calm, runway 26 right, quick takeoff.
26 right, clear takeoff, clear runway 552. From there, you can descend.
Maverick 3 Las Vegas Tower, proceed requested, report the garage.
From there, you can descend.
Robin, I have exchange group.
Right.
Maverick 27 Las Vegas Tower, proceed request, report the garage.
Hey, Tower, I think that concert ended. That's why the police are there. Just getting out. 32 garage, 3000.
Maverick 32, radar contact, proceed on tour. Did a concert for the police?
No, I think that it was. I'm not sure what kind of concert it was, but I think it's just getting out. They're blocking off the road to get people out of there.
Okay, makes sense.
Tower, Southwest 4119, 26 left.
Southwest 4119, Las Vegas Tower, winds calm, runway 26 left, clear to land.
26 left, clear to land. Southwest 4119.
Maverick 9, Las Vegas Tower, proceed request for the garage.
Hey, Tower, I think that concert ended. That's why the police are there. Just getting out. They're blocking off the road to get people out of there. Okay, makes sense.
Tower 3, garage 3000. Tower 3, radar contact. Sterling 333, cross runway 26 right, and contact ground point 1.
Cross 26 right, and then over to ground point 1, 333.
Sterling 552, contact departure.
10-9, Sterling 552.
American 21, Las Vegas Tower, procedures quick for the garage.
American 27, north garage 3000.
American 27, radar contact.
What's that? Number 9, garage 3000.
Tower 9, radar contact.
Tower American 1642, visual 26 left.
Ready, 1642, Las Vegas Tower, wind 2003, runway 26 left, clear to land.
26 left, clear to land, American 1642.
Tower 4, report the garage. Tower 16, Tower, procedure request for the garage. Attention all helicopters. I have information on an active shooter at the Mandalay Bay. Use caution if you want to reroute and head back inbound and maybe approach from the south. Let me know what you want to do.
I'm at a course of north garage 6000.
Maverick 4, radar contact. Did you get the message about the situation?
Yeah, I just heard what you said. We'll talk amongst ourselves, see what we want to do. Thanks.
Okay, I highly suggest maybe routing further west and then coming in from the south. I'm not going to depart. I think what I want to do is just get you guys back on the ground.
Okay, yeah, we can let you know. And of course.
American 1642, Las Vegas Tower, winds 1905, runway 26 left, clear to land.
26 left, clear to land, American 1642.
Southwest 3497. We're not going to be departing for a few minutes. I'll have information for you here in a few.
Southwest 3497, 11.
Vegas Tower, Mobile 7.
Mobile 7 Tower, go ahead.
I need to side or right immediately on the axis. I have individuals. The active view, Mandalay Bay, closing.
19 rights, close immediately.
Tower, West 1118 with you.
Tower, did he say he has somebody on the runway? Rouge 1853 heavy, cross runway 26 right, right turn on Bravo, and good taxi speed. We got a situation on the airport.
Good, taxi cross, good taxi speed, right turn on Bravo, Rouge 1853.
Westjet 1118 here?
Yeah, we're with you.
Alright, Westjet 1118 change to runway 19 or left. 19 or left, clear to land.
19 or left, clear to land, Westjet 1118.
Actually, you know what? Continue the approach, but I don't want you landing. There's a situation on the runway. I'm going to send you around, but I want you to continue to approach. Maintain 4,500.
Okay, maintain 4,500 right now.
Control Center, Tower, Mobile 6, extra 1 minute left.
Mobile 6 approved. Yeah, 19 right's closed. I'm not landing 19 left. I'm trying to keep all the airplanes away from that area completely.
West 1118, we're climbing up to 4,500.
West 1118, maintain 4,500.
Climbing to 4,500, we'll maintain 4,500, West 1118.
Omni 101 Heavy, Las Vegas Tower. Winds calm, runway 26 left, clear to land.
Military clearance off the escort situation.
Tower Metro
We got the 2 in our light on the runway right here. So we can get one of the ground units over here.
Uh-huh. 2 of those Mavericks don't return. One of those Mavericks doesn't return to service for 3 months.
Where do you think it went?
For repairs.
I know, but
I don't know. They went south.
So we don't know where they flew him somewhere. Him and his family
to a safe house. Yeah. So either so the CIA, FBI, somebody's got a safe house south of Mandalay Bay. They come around, and then you see 2 of the aircraft just turn off their transponders as they're heading south, and they're gone.
So did the CIA, FBI? Would you say they knew that the Saudis reached out to them at the moment to get their help?
Well, the State Department...
Or did they know in advance? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Did they know in advance?
No. Again, if you don't speak Arabic and you're not a member of the Sang and Al-Qaeda, you didn't know.
So when did they bring the CIA into the story? Was it while they were in the air saying, we're bringing the Crown Prince? We need your help?
So at some point, at 10 o'clock or so, State Department... So it turns out the State Department is who provides visiting dignitary protection. It's not the FBI or the CIA. It's the State Department. So the State Department provides visiting dignitary protection. That's who must have alerted the FBI, because that's how, Aaron Rouse is there at 1:30 in the morning, and they get involved. But I think, so again, if you don't speak Arabic, and you're not in the Sang or one of these billionaires, I mean, this is a close to the vest operation. You're talking about an assassination attempt on the scale of, Anwar Sadat. I mean, this is a big deal. Not that many.
Very much.
Yeah, not that many people are going to know about what's actually happening. Certainly not a Jesus Campos. Certainly not a Mary Lou Danley. These are all red herrings. Right.
Well, but I'm still trying to. So were the red herrings set up in advance to be red herrings?
No.
Or were they after the fact set up to be red herrings?
Correct. And that's what the FBI is good at. The FBI is good at putting things out there like 9 of the eyewitnesses that spoke out have died.
Right. So the bullshit stories that keep us chatting.
Propaganda. Right. That's right. That's our propaganda.
The people who said someone was walking through the crowd saying you're all going to die. Right. Was probably, again, just more flack to throw. So I have a friend who's...
No. Hang on. That was probably Joanne, Katie, or Laura. That was one of the women all of a sudden realizing...
It clicked.
They're going to kill these people. The girls just knew they had to get this thing set up. The girls don't know
what it was.
Yeah, they don't tell the girls that this is going to be an attack on the Crown Prince. They tell the girls, look, we're going to give each one of you $30,000. If you can get this thing, we need a party. You need to get this guy, find a guy, and the girls get paid. And if the girls are former GIP, if these are former Saudi intelligence agents that have retired and are in their 40s, and he's in his 60s, he doesn't know what hit him, man. These guys are good.
Yeah, I know.
You think the Mossad is good?
Yeah.
These guys have more money. These guys have more money. The Saudis have more money than the Mossad. So they've got everything. They've got every toy you can buy, every tool, every listening to anything you can buy. They got it. Every aspect of it that's not related to the helicopters and guys hanging out of the helicopters is a red herring. Anybody who doesn't speak Arabic is a red herring. It doesn't matter if the shooters are in the helicopter. And there's no gunfire coming from 32-135. And that's where we get into the forging of evidence.
Stay down. Against the wall. Stay down. This way. Keep your head down. Keep your head down. Run that way.
Let's go, man. No. Come back here.
Keep your head down. Run that way. Down. Run that way.
So what happens?
Well, even the mainstream media, people like Ann Coulter, who said the crime scene looked like something out of a TV show, and so there were people, Carlson, Coulter, David French, they were picking up on the baloney badly.
Here in Las Vegas, Doug Papa is a former police officer and casino security expert, and they join us both tonight. Thank you both for coming on.
Thanks, Tucker.
So, Doug, give me the overview here. We were talking in the break. We have compiled a list, my producers and I, of questions to which we have no answers. Very basic questions. I won't repeat them on the air, but basically we know basically nothing.
That's true.
Why?
I don't have any idea.
And that was also interesting to me because that's rare.
Yeah, and it's rare for them to speak out and challenge.
That's right.
And then Tucker Carlson got shut down. He was in Vegas for one night, did a show live. He had Doug Papa, and he had an attorney on. The attorney has since passed away from cancer. And then they kicked him out of Vegas. They sent him back, and he brought his whole team out there. And it was like a Tuesday that they did the first show. He was expecting to be there all week. They pulled him back. Back to Virginia.
So the question that I get confronted with on podcasts all the time, or I bring it up all the time, is what is Tucker's role? Because Tucker's the most outspoken, the person who's most likely to say the uncomfortable things. And the question is, what purpose is that serving, or is he really rogue? Which doesn't strike me as probable.
No, because
he's got to be controlled opposition.
Yeah, I mean he's going to go to a certain degree, but it's
so. Why did they let him running around saying embarrassing things? He says things about people that you'd think they'd say, "I don't want him saying that anymore," and he says it. So what is his role?
He acts as like a tar baby in the Brer Rabbit story, in that he's going to attract people who are interested in this counter narrative. But at the same time, his dad ran Voice of America, right? So he comes from a family that, had a role in national intelligence, so to speak. And so I think if at some point people come to him and say, listen, Tucker, we appreciate what you're doing here, but there's certain things here that we consider national security. When his phone was hacked and they shared with him private messages that the NSA had been tracking, he was pissed because he was trying to set up a meeting with Putin, and the NSA was reading all his personal DMs, and he was flabbergasted by that. So I think,
which in retrospect seems naive, but yeah,
right. But I think that they're willing to let him go a certain degree. But the crime that you and I are talking about right now, this Vegas shooting, at the time that it happened and up until COVID, this was the biggest cover-up that we've seen since September 11th. And with September 11th, we at least got the 28 pages, which, although ridiculously redacted, it was enough to figure out it wasn't the Ethiopians. Right? So with the 28 pages, it sort of points us in the right direction, but so many specific names are redacted. Well, it's fairly safe to assume that the same families, but now their kids 20 years later, were the people who wanted to get rid of MBS because they believe more in the Wahhabi lifestyle, the Sharia law, the old school. And MBS comes along and says, we're going to let women drive. which obviously was a huge mistake. And then he says, we're going to have movie theaters and we're going to have dancing and the old school Wahhabis are like, what is he doing? This is Mecca. You can't do those things here. This is, we're the keepers of the holy sites. And you're going to let women drive and you're going to have Middle Beast.
The day I received the Middle Beast call, it was a concept. It was an idea. And the idea was to develop a 3-day music festival. It's a fresh take on what we are as Saudis. And so finally I got to see, why I've been on this journey.
There's normally a starting point of a location or some kind of creative idea or programming idea, but there wasn't a site, there wasn't anything. So it's a very ambitious, bold undertaking.
It was bringing festival off of a bit of paper and bringing it to life. And the reason behind it is that there's a massive heart and a soul that lives in Saudi Arabia around culture and entertainment and music.
Music is universal, whether it's my crowd who speaks my language or international. Music is all about sharing the love.
We're now entering the main stage arena. Every major festival around the world, we've got experience and people in here doing work. This main arena is designed to contain about 55,000 attendees. It's big and it's bold, and that main stage that we've created is the biggest stage in the world right now, 36 meters high. So it just reflects that scale of this ambition with Middle Beast.
I'm excited about all the cultural pieces we're putting in, the interactive stuff that we're putting in.
It's really the biggest project in terms of electronic music in Saudi Arabia.
It's going to be fun and crazy and exciting. I can't wait to see people's faces at Middle Beast.
I feel like we're writing a new page of history tonight together.
I can see in the eyes of the people that this is something that is so meaningful to them.
They are bonding, becoming all together, one for all and all for one. And that's the peace, when we all unite.
What I like about this festival is like the fusion, and it works really well.
For me, honestly, this festival represents the opportunity I've always been looking for. Oh, you're so warm.
Middle Beast is about appreciating all kinds of music from all over the world.
Everyone is unanimous that it's going to be the biggest party that Saudi Arabia's ever seen, but it needs to live beyond the party.
XP covers these sort of 3 pillars of being able to experience, express and explore.
What we've done is built an incredible music studio on site, which is world-class equipment.
When you have things like this, it will really open up a really new horizon to the especially younger generations.
Saudi Arabia now it's changing, and I'm proud of myself to be the first girl who do graffiti.
It just feels like there's a bit of a change happening here. It's quite exciting.
You think you've seen it all after 20 years, but this is something really new.
We cannot imagine this happening like 10 years ago, but now it's reality.
Middle Beast is not just an event, it's going to be a showcase of local artists.
Above and beyond that, it's going to open up new opportunities for future events. We have tons of plans for Middle Beast.
Next year, we are planning to activate Middle Beast at Amsterdam Dance Event, for an example, and people will say, wow.
This festival is a really big deal. I think it really emancipates the Saudi artist and the Saudi DJ at least to show the world who are we.
This is a huge opportunity for Saudi Arabia.
It's not just a party, there's more to this, and you can feel it with the locals.
I remember growing up, I always thought, I want to move to the States or move to the UK. And today I'm like, I'm here, I want to stay here, I want to be part of this.
Middle Beast is going to keep going and it will never stop. It's just going to go all over the world.
It's something that's created here.
It's history in the making.
To them, this is like Antichrist stuff, that they're out of their minds over this. So killing him, to them, seems fully justified. He's a heathen, and that's why killing him in Vegas was that much more appropriate. We're not going to kill him in the land of Allah. We're not going to kill him in the land of Muhammad.
The land of sin. The land of sin.
That's where he deserves to die. That's where he deserves to die, amongst the heathens that he's made his bed with. That's their thinking. So killing him in Vegas makes a lot of sense. And
so Vegas is sort of a standalone story to the extent that it's just Saudi politics when you strip everything away.
Correct. Coup d'etat.
Right. And so in some sense, it's a simple plot. But then you get, I want to broaden the lens a little bit. And that is, you made some passing reference to this was not your first sort of rabbit hole.
Well, Vegas was. Vegas was mine. The COVID was my second.
So so COVID I've written 200 pages on, and I always think, you're probably a layer 27 of a 52 layer onion. So I figure that I'm sniffing around, just like as you can see in the Vegas story. I smelled a lot of it, but I was at the wrong layer, at least by your narrative. And then I can't tell you a major narrative that I can dismiss at this point as being told. They all seem, the Afghan pullout. There's nothing about that story that made any sense, right? A class of first graders could design a better pullout strategy. Bring out the citizens first. Right? Let's start with that. Yeah. And then after it was over and there were all these American citizens there and the image of hostage crisis 2.0 was just extraordinary, thinking, holy shit, we're going to have news stories of Americans getting slaughtered for months and months and then nothing. And I go, oh, that's interesting. The complete and utter absence. And so that pretty much iced the idea that we basically funded and armed the Taliban and said, the country's yours. Don't make us regret this. Here's some weapons. Here's some money. Have a nice day. And don't make us come back and bomb that living piss out of you again because you misbehaved. And they didn't misbehave. They're not stupid. The Ukraine story is every bit as bleak in terms of the narrative being dead wrong as being sold. I'm convinced that we're sending arms to the wrong side. And so I'm running out of narratives that I can say, well, I think that one is right. There's almost none that seem remarkable. To be as.
And it's why I got into this. Again, I used to work in the IT industry, and I worked for Hewlett Packard and Oracle. So for me, getting into this whole conspiracy, I was not a conspiracy theorist. I mean, like you, when I learned some more details about the JFK shooting, obviously I realized, all right, so that's not what happened. But I wasn't really a conspiracy guy. So what I wanted to talk about a little bit is the cover-up, the cover-up aspect of it, and the fact, how did they put together this cockamamie narrative, and why would they do that? And sort of who knew something and when did they know it, right? So we're talking about how the State Department covers visiting dignitaries, right? It's not the FBI or CIA, it's the State Department. So at some point, they're going to notify the FBI and probably the White House that there's been an attack on the Saudi Crown Prince, right? So at some point that evening, 10:30, 11 o'clock, some point, somebody's radioing in or calling somewhere and saying, yeah, all hell just broke loose out here in Vegas. And so the president knows. So the president is going to be notified that night. Now, the cover-up, I believe, is because MBS is involved. And less than 5 weeks later, we have the Night of the Long Sword. Now, Brookings Institute and Stratfor and all these supposed pundits just tell you that MBS is off the reservation. He's out of his mind. He's a lunatic. He's a bloodthirsty, nut. That's some hell of an explanation. Wouldn't it make a little bit more sense if most of these guys had something to do with an attempt on his life just 4 weeks earlier? And now he's like, okay, now we're going to talk. And so I'm arresting you all. We're going to call this All you guys are very, very bad because, you're stealing money. You're skimming money off the top. But he doesn't want people to know that his cousins are trying to kill him. So he asks us to please keep this quiet so that I can round up these guys and do this my way. I'll get the guys who did it. The people who shot your people, I will make sure they are punished. That was MBS's promise to our president. Let me do this my way. And less than 5 weeks later, we have the night of the long sword, and he rounds these guys up. Mansoor bin Mukran is dead.
So does he round them all up simultaneously? When you say all these guys, are the plotters or the actual guys in the helicopters?
No,
or
the money guys, the plotters, the cousins.
Guys.
The cousins, the plotters.
How many?
Over 100.
Round number.
Over 100.
Okay.
Bakr bin Laden, the head of bin Laden construction. Al-Walid bin Talal, Maiteb bin Abdullah, Mohammed bin Naid. They're all there that night. They're all there. This was like he sets it up as it's like a huge party. Shakira is going to do a private concert for the king at the Ritz-Carlton. Be there.
You'd think they would be suspicious. Right, you think they go? We just tried to kill the guy.
I don't know how many invitations these guys get, and it was from the king. It was from King Solomon. It wasn't from MBS.
Whether you like it or not.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't from MBS. It was from King Solomon. So he says,
"You don't get to say no, thank you."
Yeah,
right.
If he says, "Look, if I got Shakira and J-Lo are doing a private concert at the Ritz-Carlton, you'd be there." End of story, right? I mean,
right.
So they lock the doors. That's the night of the long sword. It's less than 5 weeks after the shooting. So he rounds all these guys up, and we've got the narrative, but the narrative has been suppressed. And this is something I want to talk to you about. The big story in the last 30, 45 days in the United States and maybe globally has been the Twitter files and the suppression,
right?
Where the government has been reaching out to private companies like Twitter, public companies, private companies, and saying, this is questionable. We kind of need you not to what have you, right? And so this is what's been illuminated by Matt Taibbi, by Schellenberger, by Barry Weiss. All right, so we've seen that content. What we saw 5 years ago in Las Vegas may be even scarier. Now, why would it be Why would it be scarier? Because suppression of Twitter is the suppression of 240 characters. And as articulate as any of us are, there's only so much we can say in 240 characters. All right, so we have to keep that in mind. Everybody's losing their minds over the suppression of a 240 character box. This is another red herring. Let's talk about the suppression of long-form content, a 2-hour documentary that's being suppressed. Is that the same? No. How could it be the same?
Well, I'll tell you what, let me counter with the idea that by suppressing Twitter, you suppress crowdsourcing, and crowdsourcing is powerful.
Absolutely. I'm not saying it's meaningless. But I'm saying that there's an aspect to the Vegas shooting from 5 years ago.
Well, they haven't said boo. Now, here's the straight. Let me just interject this in case you can go there. The Vegas shooting showed up in the news this week. Why?
Right. Well, right. I don't. Well, I don't want to.
And it was content free.
I don't.
It was content free, though.
I think the reason is because they were afraid that guys like you were going to see me on one of the podcasts. Last week I did a podcast that had 50,000 views on Rumble with a guy who's got 200,000 subscribers or 185,000 subscribers on Rumble. And the video got 55,000 views. And I think that they're afraid that credible people in academia, credible people in media are going to start to see this stuff and say, wait a second, this guy was right about the COVID stuff. He was right about the Vegas stuff. There's no theory to what he's presenting, meaning how many other organizations have got access to helicopters within a 250-mile radius of Las Vegas? North Korea? No. Venezuela? No. Who? Saudis. Now, it's not the Saudis as much as it is a rogue element within the Saudi Arabian National Guard that's willing to risk their lives to kill the crown prince. That's cuckoo. So, you can't go to war with the Saudis because, 16 guys got on helicopters one night to try and kill the crown prince.
Yeah,
right?
That's not a sovereign state move, right?
Exactly. But America tends to think in Kraft macaroni and cheese type tidbits. So that's kind of, let's go to war with the Saudis.
If the Saudis do it, let's go bomb the Saudis.
Right. Those bastards. So yeah, it's much more, there's a lot more nuance to it than that. So at the end of the day, here's something that happened back then that to me is chilling and was one of the reasons why I couldn't let it go. There's a bit of body cam footage from one of the officers when he goes to the window and pulls back the curtain to see, is the window broken?
And it's not.
And that 17 seconds of body cam footage was edited out by the New York Times and the Associated Press. Same 17 seconds. And that's when I got the chills. And that's when I realized that Langley is controlling what the New York Times is publishing.
which today seems like almost a truism.
Well, so now we have evidence that at least the government, as a, let's just use that as a placeholder, doesn't seem to have qualms about reaching out to control what's published. We're seeing evidence of that now. So is it unreasonable to expect that they were doing the same thing 5 years ago, but it was less about Twitter and more focused on the New York Times, the Associated Press, and Reuters? Because how would they make the same exact edit and take out the footage where the guy goes to the window if in fact the window's broken? If the window's broken, and this is the big reveal, this is what Penn and Teller live for. You pull the curtain back and the window's broken.
Therefore,
why do you cut those 17 seconds out? And who was it that made the phone call to the New York Times and the Associated Press to tell them exactly where to make these edit cuts? Because it's the same edit points. It's like, how do you guys share that stuff?
So I got to tell you, I had the same response to that part of the footage when I watched the documentary. And all of a sudden the guy goes to the other room and he says, the window's not broken. And I go, what?
Well, so there's more to that. So again, in Mindy's documentary, she touches on it, but again, she's using she's taking clips from my videos. If you search the channel, if you search the Johnny Hoover channel for just the term window, there's like 47 videos that look at, was the window broken? If it was, when N911WY, the LVMPD helicopter, arrives at 10:23 p.m. Flies all around the building. Do we see 32135 in the broken window? No.
You remember it. Right where that curtain is, right past the door. Okay, stand by. We've got curtains open on a window that's not broken. It's us. Corey, it's us. It's us. I'm up here. I'm in the room. Go ahead, Todd. It's us. Corey, it's us. It's us. I'm up here. I'm in the room. Go ahead, Todd.
How is that possible? They knew he was on the 32nd floor. We had that on the radio early.
You'd be looking at that. You'd be looking at that.
Well, it's not on the footage.
I know.
All right. So if the window isn't broken in 32-135, all right. So now I want to kind of walk you through this, and I want you to imagine you're Levi Hancock. You're the guy who's going to put the explosives on the door. You know there's probably 50 or 100 people dead outside. And there's some lunatic in here. And you don't know if this guy's got an M249. You don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
He puts the explosives around the edge of the door. He blows it. And he charges into that room, Levi Hancock. He's the only member of SWAT in that team.
There's no shells in a cold dead guy.
So hang on. Right. All right. Now hang on. So this is critical. This is critically important. Levi Hancock discharges his weapon. And one of the guys says, "Nice shot. You're a good shot. Good shot."
I didn't hear that.
Yeah. All right. So one of the videos on the channel is Levi Hancock good shot, right? Or just good shot. So you can just search the channel for these basic terms like Levi Hancock, good shot, window, and you'll find all the videos because there's hundreds of these videos. So
what is this? Wait a minute. What is this site you keep referring to? What is it?
The YouTube channel, the I Am John Cullen, the thing I sent you the link.
the one that got up. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a little search thing, and you can just search for the term window, and it'll pull up all the videos with the term window.
Where's the search thing? I really don't want to get off this.
Videos, shorts, live, playlist, community channels, about, and all the way out to the right, they have a little magnifying glass.
Search. There, I got it. Right, okay.
So you can search for window, and you'll find a whole bunch of videos about which window is broken and when, because the timing of when these windows were broken is huge. Turns out there's one body cam that they publish, and I have to tell you, I mean, in many cases, the evidence that I found was evidence that they're trying to scrub, and it slipped through because these guys are lazy, right? So I find footage that's nothing but like white noise. Somebody is sitting with their body cam inside the back of a vehicle.
Right.
And all we hear is the radio. So there's nothing to see, but we hear the radio. And I was able to synchronize it with the guys in the room. So now they scrub that from the guys in the room. We don't hear this conversation, but we hear it from somebody who's sitting in a vehicle. Well, I synchronized the two. And all of a sudden, we got a team outside telling the guys in the room, no, we got another room with a broken window, guys. There's another room with a broken window.
Whoever's on that 32nd floor, the north-facing window, is that one broken out also? Whoever's on that 32nd floor, the north-facing window, is that one broken out also? Whoever's on that 32nd floor, the north-facing window, is that one broken out also?
Hey, we don't need anybody else up here. We've got probably at least 10 high-powered weapons in this room.
It's on the 32nd floor. I'll stand by, see where the weapons to alert to. Whoever's on that 32nd floor, the north-facing window, is that one broken out also? Units moving to the 32nd floor, CB.
Here, I can't play what direction this room is. Let me get to a window and see. Hey.
You guys, there's a window that faces east. You have another broken window out that we're focusing on, but we just need to make sure if you guys are in there or not because there is a little bit of movement. You guys, there's a window that faces east. You have another broken window out that we're focusing on, but we just need to make sure if you guys are in there or not because there is a little bit of movement.
It's clear. One suspect down. All officers are code 4.
Keep pushing. We still don't have to do a sweep for victims. Keep pushing.
Check right here. We are facing north. We are facing north.
Just confirming that is you guys that's in the broken window that faces the left floor.
We are facing the left floor. We do not have a broken window.
Okay, copy. It looks like you might have another room that has a broken window that also faces the left floor off that north end. There's a little bit of movement unknown if it's going to be the curtains or not. I'm going to be working to get a better eye on it.
Check right here. We are facing north. We are facing north.
Just confirming that is you guys that's in the broken window that faces the left floor.
We are facing the left floor. We do not have a broken window.
Okay, copy. It looks like you might have another room that has a broken window that also faces the left floor off that north end. There's a little bit of movement unknown if it's going to be the curtains or not. I'm going to be working to get a better eye on it.
Okay, stand by. We've got curtains open on a window that's not broken. We're looking for broken. Okay, it is us. We have the broken window. That's us, Jair. Corey, Todd. Go ahead, Todd. If you can raise a CT, ask them to contact the hotel if they can turn on one of these elevators, we can get there quicker. Copy that. Is it? Okay. Senator Mueller, Kevin? They have security down at the elevator space as well. I'm just waiting for you on the 14th.
Whoa, there's a bunch of guys outside telling you guys, no, guys, we've got another room with a broken window. Well, we think we see that get shot out at 9:47 p.m. at the Four Seasons upstairs.
But I would say of all the videos that have been brought to my attention, this is probably the most or closest to something that I actually think is a real thing. And I do.
What we do see in John's video is mind-blowing.
But I would say of all the things I've seen, that is got the makings of something that's just really something. There's something there, man. And I do think there's gunfire in that room at that particular moment. It's not a coincidence. It's not something else. That's a weapon being fired up there.
Check this out.
There has been accusations or beliefs there's some explosives going off. That is also false. The only explosive contained in this event was from our SWAT team breaching the room.
And requirements to safeguard the interests of Saudi Arabia. And as you know, the economy is the vein of any country. And the economy of Saudi Arabia in 13, 14, and somehow in the beginning of 15 was not doing very good because we were so much dependent on oil. 92% of our budget was dependent on oil. And asked publicly that this is dangerous. So you have to have diversification, you have to have a sovereign wealth fund, and you have to have the less dependent on oil. Clearly, when King Salman took over and Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who was appointed recently as the Crown Prince, took the initiative of initiating the 2030 vision. Clearly, all those requirements were fulfilled. So I'm full support of it, yes. And frankly speaking, right now, Saudi Arabia is in the midst of a major overhaul and change on all fronts: economical, financial, social, entertainment, and even political. So really, we always heard about the so-called Arab Spring in certain Arab countries. So this is our version, our Saudi version of Arab Spring, our peaceful Arab Spring. So what's happening right now is not an evolution. Frankly speaking, I'll use a taboo word. This is a revolution that's happening right now, albeit a very peaceful one in Saudi Arabia.
So if there was some kind of shootout up at the Four Seasons at 947, MBS makes his escape, gets out to the helicopters, they get the whole entourage out of there. That's kind of how it looks like this thing comes together. And MBS asks the Trump administration, please keep this quiet. Please cover this up so that I can round up the guys who did it, and I will deal with this the way it needs to be dealt with. And it looks like that's what happened here. And then Khashoggi, 1 year to the day, and they put that on film. And I'd have done the same thing if Khashoggi was planning this, and he and Al-Walid bin Talal were talking on the phone, and Khashoggi says, listen, before you kill MBS, I want you to kill his wife and his kids first, and here's how I want you to do it. And MBS has these recordings. I chop the guy up too. I mean,
yeah.
If I've got a recording of this guy describing how he wants them to kill my wife and my kids in front of me, and then kill me and stuff this into
that would be a problem.
Yeah,
that would be a problem.
And the ironic thing here is that it doesn't seem that any journalists were curious. Why would you chop a guy up like that? Why would you do that? He owe you $20. I mean, why would you do something like that? Why would you
that's
dismember
not
somebody?
That's more than just being pissed.
Why would you do it exactly a year to the day of the Las Vegas shooting? That's pretty ironic.
So again, so the noise at the ground level, so the shooting up and down the strip. Who was shooting up and down the strip?
Well, if I'm hanging out of the side of the helicopter and you're flying it, I say, Dave, take us up to Bellagio real quick.
So you think they were all helicopter-driven shootings?
If I get 4 or 5 helicopters flying around in circles.
Okay.
Dave,
now, Mindy, I don't know Mindy.
Yeah.
I'd like to meet her.
I'm sure.
Say hi to Mindy for me. Tell her to reach out.
Mm-hmm.
Mindy argues that there was some ground level shooting.
Yeah, sure.
Well, who was shooting from the ground level?
All right, so there's a video on my channel called Las Vegas Shooting. If Paddock is dead, who is firing these shots at midnight? And Mindy uses a lot of that footage in her video.
Right.
We are not.
Oh shit!
Shots fired. MGM. We are not. Oh shit! Shots fired. MGM. We are not. Oh shit!
Shots being fired. We're getting a 415A now, Bellagio PER is hearing a lot of shots being fired.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, that would be.
When they breached, they said one SWAT shot him. SWAT shot him. SWAT shot him.
We're getting a 415A now, Bellagio PER is hearing a lot of shots being fired.
That's a shot. That's a shot.
What was that? Oh, right here. Go. Oh shit, that's machine gun.
Units, we're getting a 415A now, Bellagio PER is hearing a lot of shots being fired.
Is that what it was? Right here. Go. Oh shit, that's machine gun. That's machine gun fire.
Units, we're getting a 415A now, Bellagio PER is hearing a lot of shots being fired.
Oh shit. Bellagio!
Control.
Oh shit. Bellagio!
Control.
One guy did not do all this. There is no way. SWAT shot him. SWAT shot him. SWAT shot him.
It was initially reported that perhaps he had taken his own life at the very moment the SWAT team was making entry into his room on the 32nd floor. Now they've clarified that point. They say that as the SWAT officers actually broke in the door, that the gunman charged them, made it through the door, struggled with the officers, and was able to get off at least one shot, wounding one SWAT officer in the leg, and then the gunman. The gunman charged them, made it through the door, struggled with the officers, and was able to get off at least one shot, wounding one SWAT officer in the leg, and then the gunman was killed.
So who's firing?
Ground level guys. So there was a phone call, sort of a hot tip that came in from a guy from JSOC who said that there's a team of guys from ETS And ETS is like a Blackwater based in Saudi Arabia. And he said there's a team of guys from ETS in Vegas.
Let's go to Zach in Tampa, Florida. Zach, you're on the air with Shepard of Intel Hub.
Yes, Alex, Shepard, great to be on with you. Had to connect some dots because what they pulled off here in Vegas was just too far. So also what we have here is the private military company, the Saudi Arabian-based ETS risk management company.
And that's confirmed too. Everything the caller is saying is documented, because this is the final pieces. You had all this royalty there, and you had the Saudi Air Force there that week.
So yeah, this ETS risk management company is a PMC that's real shady, and they don't work now within the government because who's in the White House, but they did work during Libya with the Clintons. If I got some guys down here in the forensic accounting. If you look into the contract,
let's start over. Zach's recently gotten out of the military and the whole intelligence area. We'll leave it at that. Calling with a lot of good info in the past 6 months. So just start back over, because this is really important.
You have a contract being fulfilled by ETS risk management, but this contract was not fulfilled by DOD. Okay, so this is sort of this is where it gets tricky, but they were working, and there are PMCs that work kind of in vacuums in Libya, in Syria, and they do certain drills stateside as well. But they were there that weekend. Everybody knows they were there that weekend.
Are you talking about like those CIA paramilitary teams?
So this is a private company that is actually ran, and you could pull them up, ETS, but they are ran out of Saudi Arabia. But they did work during 2013 in Libya, and that's fiasco. So when you're saying, and people bat their eyes
at the time of the shooting, saying
there was videos of a bunch of these guys going right through one of the casinos.
So
where it was the strangest thing, where it's like, what are these guys doing? Now, on the other hand, I could shake that off, because some like Steve Wynn said, I got a team of Navy SEALs on 24/7. So you could imagine the second there's a shooting, all of a sudden, SWAT teams of private casino owned people
It doesn't take.
They'd be out of the woodwork immediately.
If you had 3 or 4 guys up and down the strip just with a pistol, you don't need much to shoot them. In other words, when you shoot the doors, the windows at the Bellagio,
but
and the whole
who are they shooting for? Who are they working for?
Part of this operation, and they're paid, and they're highly paid.
Mayhem. These are the mayhem guys.
That's all you need to do. We just need you guys to get a couple shots off up and down the strip. Breaking glass is all they need to do. They just need to break glass.
Are these Saudis? Are these Saudis?
ETS is based in Saudi Arabia. So these are
are you aware that this is totally tangential? I'm told I'm the most tangential thinker that anyone's ever met.
That's okay.
Are you aware there are Ukrainian Nazis at January 6th? This is a weird world we live in.
Yeah.
Don't let me distract you, but
that's okay. So I'll share a tidbit with you you may not have known. Back on February 25th, the Friday after Russia officially crossed the border into Ukraine, I was doing a live podcast with my broadcast partner. We do a show every Friday night. And that day, I went to the U.S. Embassy's website in Ukraine to see what were they saying, right? What's up? And you get to the homepage, and there's this whole thing about this biological threat reduction program. And I'm like, well, that doesn't sound good. Sounds a bit like Dr. Fauci's got his fingerprints on that. So I click on it, and the links are all dead. And I'm getting 404 error, 403 error, 500 error, whatever it is. Like, they're gone. There's nothing there anymore. It's like, well, why would you guys ghost all this stuff? What are you doing? It's like I'm at the U.S. Embassy's website, U.S. Embassy, Ukraine.gov, whatever the hell, the official site. And they're talking about this biological threat reduction thing. And then all the documents behind it, they've ghosted.
I thought of doing this because I saw a story in the Washington Post saying 4 Pinocchios, there's no tie. And I remember that you, John, with Jason had done an historic show on, I think it was February 25th, 2022, just as the invasion or the special military operation began. And I thought, let's go right to the source and let's debunk the debunkers and let's educate as many people as possible about what you said back then. Let's get back into what you told the world February 25th, 2022, and the documents that you can now share with us, and just really take it away.
When I got to the U.S. Embassy's website in Ukraine, okay, this is interesting. There's this biological threat reduction program thing on the website at the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine. And on the right-hand side are a bunch of links, a bunch of hyperlinks. But as I click on them, there's nothing there. And when I saw the pathogen asset control system, but the links are still there on the side. So I'm clicking on each one of them, and every one I'm getting a dead link. And this is Friday. This is the next day. So I said, what do you guys think you're doing here? What are you, smart? No, I go to archive.org and I pull up the image of the website from 2 weeks earlier. And I got all the documents. I'm the guy that got the documents that confirmed the U.S. Department of Defense was funding biological laboratories in Ukraine through a contractor called Black & Veatch.
Which the Pentagon eventually fessed up to, as did Victoria Nuland, as did.
Correct. Yes.
It was 46 labs. Do I remember the number correctly?
It's in the 40s. Yeah, it's 42, 46, something like that. So Marco Rubio questions her, and she says, yeah, we kind of do have
I was shocked by
I had the receipts. I had those documents and broadcast that Friday night.
Well, I only have a minute left. Let me ask you, does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
I'm sure you're aware that the Russian propaganda groups are already putting out there all kinds of information about how they've uncovered a plot by the Ukrainians to release biological weapons in the country and with NATO's coordination. If there's a biological or chemical weapon incident or attack inside of Ukraine, is there any doubt in your mind that 100% it would be the Russians that would be behind it?
There is no doubt in my mind, Senator, and it is classic Russian technique to blame on the other guy what they're planning to do themselves.
So here's another question. You said something at some point that I thought I heard you basically say that you are a pseudonym. Is that correct or not?
Well, John Cullen is a nom de plume, like J.K. Rowling. So that's not her birth name.
Is that right? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. That's a nom de plume. And Stephen King? Stephen King, is that his real name, or that's his?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Same sort of thing. Protecting my identity seemed somewhat pivotal because the guys who I was naming, like Maiteb bin Abdullah and Mohammed bin Nayef, are the heads of the Saudi CIA.
I know.
And so recently there was a story about an Iranian hit team that was trying to kill a journalist in Brooklyn.
Right.
And so there was like an Iranian hit squad trying to kill this woman who is a journalist. So if you can get an Iranian hit team into Brooklyn, these Saudi guys can, they'll find me.
I was going to say, Yeah, unless you've got a facial change too. It seems to me that if they want to find you, they will find you.
I just don't want to make it easy, right? I don't want to be I don't want to be recognized.
Trivial.
Yeah, and there's people who hate me, right? So there's a lot of people who vehemently disagree with my work. The GEC has
why? Okay.
Well, the GEC has got a whole bunch of contractors that sow discord on purpose because, again, if everything I'm saying is right, which apparently it is, or you wouldn't be as surveilled as you are when you search for I am John Cullen or John Cullen. Search for it, you are surveilled at a level that is unprecedented. And the question, well, why would that be if I'm wrong? If all this is just conspiracy nonsense and it's just, it's like flat earth crap.
So the good news about the Vegas shooting, there is good news here. Mm-hmm. And that is that the evilness is not, there's problems with the U.S. system in the story, but the evilness is offshore.
Correct.
So if it was FBI guys in the helicopters, that would be a whole nother level of evil.
It's exactly right. And I'll tell you what, at the beginning, I had to kind of set up certain biases. I had to say, I have to go into this with the assumption that guys who trained at Quantico didn't get in helicopters and shoot girls in the face. It was too hard for me to comprehend that as the first go-to position. I said, who are the usual suspects? Who would do something like this? And then do they have the means? Do they have the motive? Do they have the opportunity? Well, North Korea would do it, but North Korea doesn't have helicopters near Las Vegas. So who else would do this? And it was sort of like I let that, our guys, CIA, FBI, whatever, that had to be the last resort. That had to be. And so as I went through the usual suspects and I came up to Al-Qaeda embedded within Saudi Arabia and National Guard, it was like, well, it looks like we've got a winner. We got a means, we've got motive, and we've got opportunity.
And so guys like Lombardo and the various players on site.
Yes.
Someone just got into their ears and said, you are so over your head. Just play along.
You're going to love this. Go for it. You're going to love this. The press conference where Lombardo looks like he's going to cry.
And you can't expect exact answers in the early throws. My intent in the early throws were to give you the information to provide that calmness in the community to ensure that we didn't have a second player or a third player out hiding in the community intending to cause us harm. So there was no integrity question associated with that, as I've experienced through the cyberspace, questioning my integrity. I provided you the information as I knew it, and everybody in here knew it was going to change. So we will get through that. I'm not giving you 100% satisfaction associated with what I'm going to give you today, because I think some of that's going to change. And we will not know that until we're completed with this investigation. So back to where we were. I think it's important for the community of Clark County to realize we use 17 separate medical facilities to accommodate the injuries associated with this event. And that speaks volumes for the medical community here in Las Vegas, in Clark County. And it seems to be lost in the narrative. The dates of the 25th versus the 28th. This was not breaking news, no matter who believed it to be so in this forum. We were aware of the discrepancy of the 28th versus the 25th in the early parts of this investigation. What we weren't aware of is why the date of the 28th was utilized in the early portion of this, as I was provided this information as part of the person registered in the suspect's room. We have come to learn the suspect did occupy the room on the 25th, and the situation on how the room was compensated or paid for had changed, and the name as part of the registration had changed on the 28th to include Mary Lou Danley. So that was the confusion associated with that. No matter what the perception is, whether we were being non-transparent or we were attempting to be subversive, is false. I was acting on the information at the time I was provided it. Now the timeline. Unfortunately, a great deal of my investigators' time has been preoccupied on this timeline. In the public space, the word incompetence has been brought forward, and I am absolutely offended with that characterization. This is a very dynamic event, very big event. Thousands of people involved, humans involved in documentation, and every venue of information involved in this investigation. So,
I know that press conference.
All right. What happened that morning is when Lombardo was told what happened. He didn't know. He didn't know.
He certainly didn't know day one. He didn't know day one.
Correct. So think about this. All right. So I got to walk you through this. The cops blow the door. You're Levi Hancock. When you blow the door, there's a guy sitting in a chair with a gun pointed right at you.
That's the nice shot. But he was dead already.
So what? That's what the Saudis did, is they take the body.
They propped him up.
Stick an AR under his arm, and now the minute the cops come in, they think somebody's going to kill him. Levi Hancock, nice shot. Levi Hancock puts one right here in the dead guy. He's already got a bullet wound in his chest. Somebody shot.
So then they're going, what the hell is going on?
Correct.
Here?
And
that must have been mind-boggling for those guys. Why did they turn off their cameras? Why did they turn off their cameras?
Because they had to hide the chair that the dead body
No. But before they went in, they said, turn off your cameras.
No, that's after.
What told them to... Oh, is that after?
That's in the elevator after the fact. That's after they're all leaving now. They're securing the floor. And all the guys get in the elevator and like, turn off your cameras. Turn off your cameras.
See, I thought the camera work in the room was one guy who didn't turn off his camera. That's what I thought.
That is correct. So that's Bitsko. Now,
my camera's on too.
Mine is on.
Again, this is all illusion-based stuff, right? So they tell you nobody had their cameras on. No. One guy had his camera crooked enough, pointing up at his nose, that they could show you that footage and let you feel like, okay, we got to see what was going on in the room. All right.
Right.
With that footage turns out to be enough to get a fair amount of evidence, despite the fact they thought it would be useless, right? So it wasn't useless. We got some stuff from it. But don't think for a minute that these other guys had their cameras turned off.
So the anti-gun crowd
mm-hmm.
should be using Vegas as a rallying cry, and they never do. Now, I understand why the authorities don't want them to.
Mm-hmm.
How do you shut them all down? You would think the loose cannons, the AOCs, the who knows, you would think people would be saying, what, don't forget Vegas, and you never hear it.
Well,
how do you shut down the entire anti-gun crowd?
Well, they got the bump stock thing, and the bump stock was another one of these red herrings where they got to ban the bump stock, right? So that was another, here, throw a bone, throw a bone and watch the dogs chase the bone. And it was all about bump stocks. It's like, oh my God.
But I don't think I've heard reference to the Vegas shootings 5 times in the last 4 years.
No, they don't want to talk about it. And then the FBI just comes out with new information. It's like, well, what's that all about? To say that Paddock had it.
But you think the activists, the low-level people, would be squealing about Vegas nonstop, and they're not. And I'm trying to figure out how you shut down that group. The activists on the street. You never hear Vegas mentioned.
It might be that there's members in the Senate that are on these committees, and there's intelligence committees, and they meet and have a skiff, and so you have to believe some people know this story. Some people know what happened, and they don't want to talk about it. Now, you brought this up earlier. Why did this all of a sudden? Did we get a release from the FBI in the last week or 10 days where they're talking about this new motive, and he was really angry?
It was a bullshit story. Yeah, it was a bullshit story. There was nothing new.
Why would you open up the Pandora's box if you don't have something really meaningful?
And it was after you and I agreed to chat, which was really interesting because we agreed. And then all of a sudden,
I think that's what they were afraid of. I think they were afraid that credible people are going to see these podcasts and say, wait a second, there's something to this here. And
there's an analogy here, and that is the lab leak story. It's this gigantic series of red herrings where they're getting people to argue about irrelevant things, completely irrelevant things.
Well, we're going to run out of time, and I've taken so much of your time, and I'd love to talk to you about the lab leak at Wuhan, and how there may have been 2 pandemics, not one, based on my research. And
there may not have been much of one either. I mean, it's very complicated. I'm in a doctor Zoom group that turns out to have gotten every goddamn famous anti-vaxxer you can name it. And here's what I'll tell you is every anti-vaxxer, pro-ivermectin, anti-lockdown person of repute, they've all gone super dark.
Yeah.
So they'd all be able to join us in this conversation and agree. And so these guys I feel bad for them. So here these virologist physician types, all of a sudden they're tooling along thinking life's grand. Next thing they know, they're in a rabbit hole. And it's their first. And so they're going, why? And they kept saying stuff. And I go, you don't understand, guys. You're not going to beat them in court. You're not going to win it this way.
There's a level of deception here that most people aren't used to.
Can't even handle.
And it's not just deception. In other words, deception with lack of morality, sociopathic, psychotic type motives. It's scary stuff. And if you're just a researcher minding your own business in a lab in Princeton or something, you can't even imagine this kind of stuff. And this is where we get into things like normalcy bias, right? People can't imagine this level of evil. They just,
given all of the evidence, circumstantial, inadvertent experiment as it may be, from all of the evidence that this appears to have a mechanism for action and appears efficacious in preventing both the spread between people and the spread within a person, why on earth would you not run a very large study that would tell you for sure how good this was and how best to use it.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you?
And wouldn't it be a legitimate word to use that it would be criminal if you didn't, if you knew that it would be a good idea to do so? Well, as it turns out, if ivermectin were an effective treatment, the vaccines never would have gotten emergency use authorization in the US. And we know that because even my computer would like me not to be talking about this, here is, and we'll link to the URL for this, but here is just a downloaded version of the document from the FDA, Emergency Use Authorization of Medical Products and Related Authorities, Guidance for Industry and Other Stakeholders. So I'm going to scroll down. This is from January 2017, expires in 2022. This is still the guiding document. And you go down, not very far. Here we go. Criteria for issuance under Emergency Use Authorization, Medical Products, 1, criteria for issuance. There are a few. It needs to be a serious or life-threatening disease or condition. There needs to be evidence of effectiveness. There needs to be a risk-benefit analysis. And D, there need to be no alternatives. I quote, for the FDA to issue an emergency use authorization, there must be no adequate, approved, and available alternative to the candidate product for diagnosing, preventing, or treating the disease or condition. A potential alternative product may be considered unavailable if there are insufficient supplies of the approved alternative to fully meet the emergency need. That is not a problem for ivermectin. By not doing the relevant large-scale clinical studies on ivermectin, and thus it not being approved by the FDA for use in COVID, that opens the door for EUAs, for emergency use authorization, for the vaccines that we are now all living with and among.
This is stunning. If that is the explanation, then we are talking about something for which I'm not even sure we have a proper term, because
anger-inducing?
It is that, but let's just say this would have elements of malpractice. This would be gross negligence. I think it verges on depraved indifference, given that we're talking about a life or death situation for vulnerable people who get this disease, in addition to effectively the crippling of the world economy, and who knows how much harm. We'll never be able to measure all the harm that came from this pandemic and the way it has forced us to alter our behavior, all the businesses that have closed, all the people who've been rendered homeless. Who's to say what all of the costs actually are? And
it's like, come on, that's you can't even mention Goebbels and Mengele and stuff like that.
And from organizations that they were stunned. Like one of the guys who's really interesting to watch is Jeffrey Sachs, who not only was involved in COVID, but he was also involved, of course, in Ukraine. And in both, it turns out he's had these epiphanies where he goes, my God, it's screwed up. And I sent him an email and I said, Jeff, hang tough. You're fighting two fronts. And it was clear he had no idea that he was going to run into the Daszak barrack on one front and the NATO on the other front. And his podcasts, are emphatic at this point, where he's almost catatonic. He's so upset by what he's seeing. And Sachs knows geopolitics.
Oh God. I mean, the guy's brilliant. I would love to have you back on the show to talk about the pandemic and sort of some hidden narratives and some hidden threads there. Maybe in a week or two, based on your availability. I'd love to have you back.
Yeah, you let me know anytime.
You will be floored when I show you some evidence that's been hidden like this, right? So if they're this good at suppressing this stuff, imagine how good they were suppressing something that killed 7 million people. When you see this, the level 27 in the Onion,
right?
You're gonna be stunned. You're gonna be stunned. And again, it's goosebumps.
Well, I know more about the pandemic than about Vegas, because the Vegas was a short little window. The pandemic, I've spent thousands of hours. So so I just don't know what's real is the problem. All that noise, right? There's so much noise.
I'm eager to show you some evidence that I think will floor you. You will be stunned. So I'm eager to share it with you.
I'm game. I'm game.
I can't thank you enough for joining me on Hypothetically Speaking and taking this time. Dr. Dave Collum, you are a hero.
Send me a link. Send me a link.
I will do that. Thank you kindly for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me. Adios.
All right.
Rainy day in mid-December, not quite cold enough to snow. Oh, this kind of day makes me remember all the lows I felt before. In my dark days, if only I knew what it feels like to be looking at you. All the weight I've been holding on to, I set aside. You hold the space behind the waterfall. I break through, and you showed me it was worth it all. Staring at the burning embers, no fire's heat can keep me warm. Soon the ash replaced its timber, and slowly I just turned to stone.